All right, King Killers, we're covering chapters 2 through 3 from the Wave Kings in this episode. We're going to see Kaladin having a good old time as he adjusts to his new life as a slave, and we're going to meet Shallan for the first time, another prominent redhead in a fantasy series. Also, we're going to talk about the dope eyebrows that the Thaylens have, and we'll talk about flip cup, cocaine, and why women are locking up their left hand in kitten mittens. So sit back and enjoy.
Devil wanna flee, I got a scope zoomed in on the sniper in the trees. I'ma surround if the devil wanna flee, I got a scope zoomed in on the sniper in the trees.
All right, welcome back to the King Killer podcast. Got with me Tim here. What's going on, Tim?
I am here. Hello. Hi.
So
that's how I talk. That's my normal.
No,
hello.
that is super normal. This super normal talking voice. So we're diving back into the Stormlight archives in this episode. Finished up on chapter 1 last time, so we're going to dive in chapter 2, maybe get through maybe chapter 4. Where exactly have you finished off at? Where are you up to on this?
I think I'm right at the end of like chapter 22, and I believe where I've gotten to, like the last part I remembered was one of the kings, like his mother, is back in the fold. She showed up at some shindig. They were having a real hootenanny barn burner, and she just happened to show up. And it was a bit of a surprise, and it seems to create a little bit of the tension that you try to stay away from in these books. And it's hard to remember a lot of. Oh yeah, and with Kaladin, he's kind of getting his group going with Bridge 4, right? So he's got a couple allies out of showing his leadership, which they were reluctant to follow at first, but then he kind of saved a guy or two, and they see him, working his ass off, like training. They're still looking at him training, like, "Fuck's this guy's deal, man? Like, what is he doing, man?" But he's slowly getting. It's weird. He's such an interesting character because, he is like super fucking like pissed off, sort of emo, like giving up type guy, and then finds like, well, this is something that I can focus on. It seems, and seems to be what he's like. All right, let me make this work. Let me save my guys' lives. And actually, so one of the last parts I listened to, he's setting the bar really high where he doesn't want any of his guys to die.
Yeah.
So the fact that some do, he gets really disappointed, but then he hears actually all these other bridges, this is how many they're losing. Like what you're doing is effective. So that was kind of where it ended, that I can remember.
Yeah, Kaladin's got some unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's great, right? I mean, in terms of the character, that makes for a really interesting character. His background's great, sort of.
But because it's also interesting because, like, you would think, like, with a guy that seems to suffer from depression, and understandably for what he's the life he's living, but a guy that suffers under that and also seems to get a jolt out of being a leader, being someone in charge, protecting people, being kind of a savior type figure. Like he gets a rush out of that, but then also he sets unrealistic expectations. So like the one thing where you'd be like, oh, that's the cure, just fucking put him in some charge of some dudes. But then you're like, but he sets the fucking bar so high that he's destined to fail. There's no possible way to succeed.
It's really interesting because he's helping everyone else raise up, right? But then he can't get to where he wants to be. So he's destined to fail. He's destined to be depressed and pissed off and over anxious, while everybody else is at least getting lifted up by his efforts. But he's all about the self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool too. Like we got or at least I've gotten to the point where I got some of his backstory, where he was like growing up and him and his brother and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool to sort of flesh him out as well.
Yeah, he's got an interesting story. So we're starting off with chapter 2 in this one. Honor is dead. And so we come out of the big battle that he had fought with Amaran's force, and now he is traveling in a slave caravan. He has become a slave. He's become a slave.
So
And
this, so I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say this slave caravan, the caged wagon. You know, if they decided to make this a musical, I really feel like this would be like a really bawdy burlesque type deal, like all these dudes singing in this caravan.
Yeah, they don't talk about it. They don't talk about that, but like they're not obviously covering every minute of every day of what the caravan's doing. But yeah, I see like, the parts that they don't show, I'm thinking, yeah, show tunes, a lot of, a lot of coordinated dance routines where, they're kicking their legs out between the bars and doing like high leg kicks and synchronized high leg kicks and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what you would think that they're doing.
That's how I'm picturing this. When they do this, like if they're going to execute this well as a film and or series, which should be a series, yeah, I think that's the way to go, right? Straight up musical.
I mean, everything should be a musical.
Everything, period.
Yeah. Why would you speak words when you can sing them?
Yeah, that doesn't ruin the drama for you.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that will turn me off. Like sometimes I don't notice it as much as if it's animated, but if there is singing and a show where it's not like they're on stage singing as part of the show, where they just break into song out of nowhere, like it throws me out of anything I'm watching. There is never a time where it does not throw me completely. When I was a kid, I could do it. As an adult, I'm always like, why are they singing? Like nobody does this. This is completely ridiculous behavior.
It very much feels archaic. I mean, it's definitely coming from another time where it seems like constantly there had to be over the top entertainment. And for them, it seemed to be a lot of kicking and spinning and singing and all that, all that sort of glitz and glamour and whatnot mixed in with it. I remember like trying to watch Singing in the Rain, I don't know, a decade ago. And it was like, man, it's good if not for all the singing and dancing. Like the other scenes, it's actually really kind of interesting. And it's a interesting story in the timeline, but it just got to the point where it's like, I can't do any more of these, man. Like I remember I fast forwarded and it was like, oh, it's the end of the movie. I'm like fast forwarding through the climax crescendo, but it's a song and fucking dance number. It's like, I got it. Okay. I get it. You guys are really athletic and talented. You can do all this shit. But yeah, after a while, it's just like enough, bro. Yeah. Although the latest Les Miserables works for me, but yeah.
I can't do it. I can't even do those. Like that, everybody's like, no, it's phenomenal. And then I put it on. I'm like, no, I hate it. I don't. Whatever that gene is that makes you enjoy that, I don't have that. That gene has been ripped out of my body because I watch that stuff and I'm like, no, why are they singing? This is ridiculous. And like, especially when they're singing over like being beaten or tortured or fucked with and they're singing, I'm like, what are we doing here?
That's how you get through it, man.
Yeah. It's like watching a movie about Anne Frank where it's turned into a musical. Like, no, this does not work at all.
That's super weird. But I mean, it does show you like it's really a time capsule type thing because but even like the example I just gave, Les Miserables is actually great, but yeah, you do have to be like, oh, that's what we're doing. Okay. And then you have to like be ready for it because there's just nothing these days that comes out that's like that. And typically when it is like hokey as shit.
I can, like I said, if it's animated, I can kind of somewhat get through it. But yeah, if it's just real people and they just start singing no, it loses me immediately. But yeah, so definitely though, Stormlight Archive, 100%, definitely a musical. Kaladin, at least Kaladin. Kaladin should be singing everything.
So he's the guy, just him and his Windspren, but everybody else normal.
Yeah,
just he's the one.
That's
Oh,
the
so
one.
that-
That's the change they make from when they adapt this. They adapt it perfectly. They don't change anything except for they write in a bunch of song and dance numbers with Kaladin and Syl.
Makes no sense. It'd be so frustrating. Like, what? Wait, what? Like, and it like all the trailers, it's like super well produced, and you're like, dude, this is gonna be fucking awesome. And then you get there, and it's like song and dance number. The second you meet Kaladin, you're like, wait, what? Are they just doing that now? Like, what? I don't understand the context.
Oh man. But yeah, so all right, so we'll stop fucking around with you guys. I get you guys are probably like, all right, guys, get the fuck on with the book. But so in this chapter, it starts off with another one of the openings where 10 orders. We were loved once. Why have you forsaken us, Almighty? Shard of my soul, where have you gone? Collected on the second day of Kalash, year 1171, 5 seconds before death. Subject was light-eyed woman in her third decade. 8 months later, we are now with Kaladin in the slave hand. So we get another one of these weird and little death rattles. We still don't know anything about what's going on with them. And then 8 months later, this is 8 months after the battle with Amaran. When last chapter it ended with the shard guy with the shard plate and the shard blade rolling up on that kid who's, wounded. 8 months after that, Kaladin is now in a slave caravan.
So Kaladin was the badass leader of the group, hoping that they would get taken to the Shattered Plains. He was hoping their behavior and how well they're doing as a group, this is going to earn them going to the Shattered Plains. And here he is, a slave in a caravan, doing dance numbers.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, it catches you off guard because you don't expect that after the first chapter. You're expecting that he's a fucking badass, and they're gonna come in and they're gonna finish the battle. He's gonna save the day or something. Like he's gonna fight this guy. You don't expect 8 months later he's a slave now. Like, whoa, what the fuck happened in the last 8 months?
He's a slave and he's tried to escape 12 times. He's all, what do you call it? Branded up on his forehead and everything. Yeah, it's rough, man.
Yeah, it's Kaladin's stomach growled as he reached through the bars and accepted the bowl of slop. He pulled the small bowl, more a cup, between the bars, sniffed it, then grimaced as the cage wagon began to roll again. The sludgy gray slop was made from overcooked tallow grain, and this batch was flecked with crusted bits of yesterday's meal.
Yeah, sounds so good. Like Quaker oats and chunks of garbage, basically.
Yeah, that's some fine dining. It's at least three Michelin stars or whatever that star system is. That's at least 3.
Clearly this is all they have. The other slaves are clutching their bowls, and it seems we find out pretty quickly that it looks like Kaladin's the alpha male in this group, and they're all kind of scared of him.
When we hear about how big Kaladin is, everybody, as the story goes on, everybody talks about how fucking tall he is, how big he is. He's a big fucking dude. He sounds like he's probably 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", something in that range. Because when we meet Rock's 7 foot, and he's not that much taller than Kaladin. He's taller than Kaladin, but he's not fucking towering over Kaladin. It's not mentioned in that regard. So he's probably at least 6'6". He's a big fucking dude. I'm not trying to fucking steal that dude's food. I'm probably gonna fucking go after one of these old slaves.
It also seems like he's kind of proven it at this point within their circle that he's not taking any shit. And,
no,
we get that pretty quick. But I remember, I think it's in this chapter, we eventually find out he's fucking 19, and that was surprising when I was reading it, because I'm like, this dude sounds like a grizzled vet.
Yeah,
he's been through a lot of shit, you can tell, and he's depressed. I mean, type of dude that's gone through a lot of shit. You'd think he's in his late 30s or something, given his behavior and kind of where his head's at. But he's 19. You're like, oh shit.
Seen some shit though. Seen some
Yeah.
shit in the last 3 or 4 years. But yeah, first day someone tries to steal his food. He nearly breaks the man's arm. It just seems so ridiculous to me. Like, why would you pick that dude? Like, there's a caravan of other guys. Kaladin is probably the biggest, strongest dude. He's just like a 6'6", 19-year-old fucking dude. He's probably the most in shape slave. Like,
Yeah.
just
And
whoever tried to steal from
not
him,
only is he
that dude is not the brightest bulb in the box.
yeah. Well, and he's not only 19, young and tall and big. He's a former soldier and like an elite soldier. So yeah, I'm thinking he's probably in decent shape. So yeah, the guy that tried to steal his food's a moron. And I guess he deserves what he got.
But yeah, and then we get because we left the first chapter and we talked about in episode 1, like you get that clear sense that Kaladin was just hell-bent on saving everybody in his crew. To lengths where he would go, he went and protected that kid and put himself in danger to protect this kid who can't even fucking fight. And
he spends
takes
his
a
own
massive
money.
risk 1 against 6.
Yeah, and he spends his own money to like repair their wounds. Like they fight,
and to get that kid to bring this kid into his crew who can't fucking fight.
Yeah.
Like, so, like, I mean, this guy's definitely
wild.
got like a savior complex, and so you take him in a situation where he just lost everybody, and now he's a slave. He's tried to escape, a number of times. He's in a terrible, terrible mindset. Like, I mean, the worst possible thing you could do to the guy is just have his entire crew that he was trying to protect get fucking wiped out, and that's where he's at.
Yeah, and it seems like you said, he's pretty bummed out. He's taking it very seriously.
Yeah, to the point he's like, he fought down the paranoia. He wouldn't become like them, even if he'd given up everything else, even if all had been taken from him, even if there was no longer hope of escape. This one thing he would retain. He was a slave, but he didn't need to think like one. Like, that's it? That's all you got? And it's like, I'm not going to be paranoid. Ooh, that's a rough life.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And I mean, it also seems like he's pretty hell-bent on making things worse for himself.
Honestly, though, I mean, if you put me in that situation, like, I'm going to be the same way. Like, what are you going to do? Kill me? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's just going to, well, I don't know.
We'll torture you. My existence is torture. You torture me for my life. That's what you do. Like, I'm not going to want to talk to the other slaves. I'm not going to want to have fucking camaraderie with them unless it's, make a plan to escape. And then he's given up on that. He feels like that's hopeless. So, yeah, if I'm in that state where I don't feel like there's a chance to escape, I'm just going to be dude, I'm going to have some very dark thoughts, and I'm not going to be real chummy with people. And I'm going to be that guy that stirs up shit with the people who are imprisoning me.
Well, it's really interesting with the Windspren, right? Or what's her name? I know she didn't have a name here. Yeah. I mean, she's not still here. She's Windspren, but
yeah,
it's really interesting how she basically is getting involved, and it seems like this helps him, but it's also we still really don't know why, because we get it reiterated throughout the chapter that even she's surprised that she's able to think to sort things out. It seems like Spren aren't capable of that, or haven't been capable of that.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting dynamic to mix in, because he's in that awful, awful state of existence, but now he has someone sort of pushing against him or prodding him with questions and kind of fucking with him. It seems like their intention, by and large, up to this point, is really just to kind of mock people, like they're little trolls.
Yeah.
which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah,
They just,
yeah. Like
fuck
the
with
very
people.
first mention of it is, Syl going up, and like he had hoped that this one had gotten bored and left, but as Kaladin tried to toss his wooden bowl aside, he found that it stuck to his fingers. The windspren laughed, zipped by, nothing more than a ribbon of light without form. He cursed, tugging on the bowl. Windspren often played pranks like that. Pried at the bowl, and it eventually came free. Grumbling, he tossed it to one of the other slaves. The man quickly began to lick at the remnants of the slop. Which it's interesting on a couple levels. Is like, one, it's just this little like fairy type of creature fucking playing pranks on you, sticking your fucking bowl to your hand while you're a slave, fucking having a bad day, and this person's like playing pranks on you. Where it's like, you motherfucker, man, really? Me? Like, go fucking pick on the fucking slave owner, you fucking asshole. But
I
it's
love
funny. And then, but they also, like, the part that's kind of interesting is, like, one of the things the Windspren does is make the bowl stick to his hand, which is, we've seen, what Zeth did in the prologue was to be able to make things like when he pinned the door shut, he made the door stick like super glue. Like he had a power very similar. And so this Windspren has, some kind of power that's to be able to make things stick to his hand. Like it's a similar type of power, you would assume.
Visually, I think it's awesome. Like I'm constantly. Sanderson has a knack for these visuals. At least as far as I feel about it. The Spren seem like they would done well. Could be like really visually pleasing, and it's a weird mix too because it's fucking with him, and then he's tossing the bowl to another slave who quickly begins to lick at the remnants of the slop, which is just gross.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a whimsical image with the Windspren, and then just like disgusting mixture of imagery within this caravan, and there's all these dudes all probably looking and smelling like shit, eating gray slop out of bowls.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I could do it. I think I would just give up. Like, you would have to force feed me. Like, I think I would just give up. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't get up. Like, you'd have to drag me everywhere. Fuck,
Yeah, I don't know,
like,
man.
what are you going to do? I mean, like, you beat the shit out of me, and it's like, at some point, I'm going to fucking break on that, where it's just like, well, I don't fucking care anymore.
I think every time I picture this sort of circumstance, it just seems like you would have to get together with the other people and figure out a way. We're all going to attack at once. And if not, I'm just going to attack until they kill me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, just fight, at least fight.
Yeah.
You got to do something other than just laying there and being tortured for forever. No, that's not going to work.
Because that's the thing. Like, I can understand where if they weren't torturing you and they were just having you do hard labor, like, that's one thing.
And there's an end. Well, if there's an end to the sentence, you know what I mean? Like, and it seems very loose here because they're like, well, you can buy your way out of slavery.
Even still, like, even if I have an existence, like, I'm not eating fucking shit, eating moldy garbage shit, and just no life whatsoever. And then, the work is fucking torture. It's not just hard labor. It is fucking torturous labor. Like, at that point, it's like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, why would I do this? Why would I not just give up? Because, like, you've advanced so far. It's become so brutal that life has become meaningless at that point. Like, what am I fighting to live for?
Even just the first thing you said there, like, if you had to be dependent on someone else for food after I haven't had to be, that's pretty brutal, man. I'm not even willing to go back to that, let alone now I have to do what you tell me to do and it's not what I want to do. Yeah,
but if like someone's problem. Like feeding you and that kind of stuff in your work, it sucks, but it's not like killing you. And I can see hanging on to life in that situation. Yeah, I understand. That would suck. Yes. But if you have some kind of life, I can see where the threat of torture would be enough to be like, I don't want to be tortured. I'd rather put up with this this is not as bad as
Yeah.
torture. But
Yeah.
what Kaladin's going through, and especially what he goes through when he gets to the Shattered Plains, that he's getting tortured. He's getting tortured, and they're sending him out to die. Like, what's the threat at that point?
Repeatedly. Yeah, repeatedly. Well, and that's why he goes to the cliff, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever, the sheer, and he's like, considers it.
Yeah.
And again,
I just like, I don't know how they would keep
steps
I don't know
in.
how they would keep anybody alive, because it's just, maybe I'm underestimating the desire that people have to continue living, because it just seems like it's so brutal that it seems like it would be too much.
Well, yeah, I was going to say their little system seems very loose. With the idea that you can work your way out of slavery. It like who's keeping this tally, man?
Yeah.
Like, like I get you're getting paid, but it seems like a loose fitting system. And what's the assuredness that this is even going to be effective? Because even when
they shoot out an email once a week, give you updates.
It's like a 401k,
yeah,
where you're just like literally seeing tallies.
Yeah, they match your salary for the first what do they call them? Not the bromes, but the first chip or whatever it's called.
So you're just depending on what's his fucking fake Gaz? You're just depending on Gaz being honest.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's gonna work too well.
Seems like he's a very good dude and very good with money. Seems like be the perfect guy to rely on.
Do they have rating agencies for these slave owners?
Oh, AAA.
Dependability. Yeah.
It's amazing. That's one thing. Like the rating agencies are all redundant because they're all so good. They all get AAA's ratings.
The glyph thing, the glyph pair, which I'm still sort of figuring out or hearing a little bit more about the glyphs, because I just got to the point, or I just reread the point where Shallan knows quite a bit about glyphs, and what's her face, Yesna Colin is not very impressed.
No, she mocks
whatsoever.
Fucking like, oh great, well, you're basically like a little kid.
You can doodle. You can scribble. Oh, that's cool.
What a ridiculous system though. Like they talk about like the guys don't read. It's too sissy.
It's fucking crazy.
Little sissies reading.
So they
you
can't
sissy boy. You read. You fucking sissy.
They don't covet intelligence.
No, why don't you go wear a dress, you sissy man?
That's strange, man. That's a really strange.
Cool. You cover up your left hand. Gonna read a book, but the idea that they don't read, but then they can read glyphs, and glyphs are just like it's just like a stupid form of reading, like a less sophisticated. It's just like instead of like it's instead of letters, it's just like designs that spell words. It still means something. It's still writing.
It almost seemed like
stupid.
It almost seemed like there was an implication that the glyphs are like, in a way, more sophisticated, just in the sense that they're like maybe like more poetic, or maybe like a loftier representation of, I don't know, an image or a thought or a
I think
concept.
Of glyphs like basically like almost like a drawing where it's a symbol, but instead of the symbol representing one letter, like represents a word or a phonetic.
That's what I mean, like a concept is what I was thinking. But I mean, obviously I don't fully understand it in terms of what the real differentiation.
Like because he had
it does seem odd.
Says like the first two made a glyph pair given to him 8 months ago on his last day in Amaram's army. The third was fresh, given to him by his most recent master, Shash. The last glyph read, dangerous. So, like, it's a glyph that says Shash, which means dangerous. So it's just whatever it is, the design or whatever, says a word. Like, to me, that's reading. What are we talking about here?
Yeah. That's and if I remember right, when Shallan
But
mentions it to Yasna, it seems like she tried to articulate it as if it's somewhat sophisticated.
yeah,
Maybe the idea with the glyphs is it carries across languages. Maybe that's part of the idea. But yes, I agree with you. It's basically reading. So what's what are we different? You're not reading books, okay? So you can see images,
yeah,
and that's not sissy, I guess, or
yeah,
that's not feminine.
yeah. It
It's
just seems like
strange.
something like guys in a powerful position that they kind of need to be able to read, and they were
Yeah.
just like, well, we got to come up with a cheat here, so let's come up with fucking glyphs.
It seems odd to not have power and intelligence together, to not be
Yeah.
wanting that in a in a society.
Well,
I mean, I can
the idea
understand
that the
it.
guys would not want to read and they just rely on the women to read to them, it's a very hard dynamic to wrap your head around. Like how,
Yeah.
why?
Well, you're very limiting in terms of your power because now you're
Yeah.
relying on these other people. Like,
What if they're lying to
yeah,
you?
yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, you're vulnerable. Where you're reliable, or where you're relying on someone, you're vulnerable in that circumstance.
Now,
So that's a strange dichotomy.
what it would be interesting is like you would expect in a society like that where you're that reliant upon the others, like the women, there's things that they don't do, and then there's things that the men don't do, and so they're very segregated as far as this is your role, this is my role. So they would be very reliant upon each other. So you would think that in a culture like that the marriages would be very strong, and that you would have to depend on each other, because if you
Mhm.
were seen as someone, like if you married someone and then turns out you're unreliable and shit, and whatever shit didn't work, like why would any man fucking trust you
Yeah,
after that? Like, I mean, you would
yeah,
think trust would just be so paramount
yeah,
in this society,
yeah.
although we don't see we don't see that most of the people are very unfucking trustworthy.
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm not that far in, so I don't know. I believe you. Thus far, it has seemed that way. I haven't seen. I mean, already it seems like there's
What?
broken relationships. It also sounds like, at least in Kaladin's circumstance, and maybe somebody else describes Light Eyes as they're all corrupt.
Well, and like, I mean, Kaladin talks about like all these people are corrupt. Amaram, who he was just fighting for.
Yeah.
Like in chapter 1, he's talking
He,
about Amaran like he's the one of the good guys, and then
yeah,
in a couple chapters he's talking about Amaram like, I want to fucking murder that guy. He fucked me
yeah,
over, and so like
yeah,
we're already seeing deception and guys like breaking their word, but it's something that I find it interesting, because in a society that is that segregated, you would think trust, at least between men and women, would need to be pretty fucking paramount. Like, you have to be able to trust someone, because
yeah,
if you're reliant on someone to be able to read to you, if you want to be educated and understand what's going on in the world and understand history and these kind of things, man, you gotta fucking trust that person's reading you the truth and not just fucking leaving out holes in your education.
yeah. It would also seem like the immediate family, like your clan,
Yeah,
your immediate group, would have to be very tight as well. There'd have to be very little. There's very little room for deception. It would have to be.
hey, you'd have to have a
Yeah.
close circle, and have to be hard to penetrate that circle. You'd have to prove yourself. Like, you just couldn't just like go in. But it's weird because like these men, they don't fucking care about reading. They think it's fucking sissy shit. Like, so it's like, I don't, man, it's very weird. It's very different from, our culture. Like the idea, like not reading, like what we're doing right now. Like, you're doing this, like the idea of like not reading is just preposterous to me.
Well, the amount of loss, it's massive, and it's huge. Like, how much of the world can you understand?
So much
You
of
understand?
like, anytime like I'm interested in something, like, well, I'm gonna go read about that topic. Like,
Not
I
anymore.
can't
So it's all
imagine
word
like
of
a
mouth.
scenario where it's like, if I got interested, it's like, well, it's kind of some sissy shit, but I guess I could have a girl read it to me.
Well, well, but then I guess you have the what's the they're almost like they sound like priests to me.
Yeah,
It seems like that's who you go to.
the
It seems
ardents,
like that
yeah.
to me. Yeah, yeah. So it's like you want to study, you go to the ardents. It seems right. I don't know. I'm the world's still getting fleshed out for me.
Ardents, yeah. The
But
men ardents are some of the few that do read, that they can read and stuff, and it's not seen
mhm.
as sissy because they're ardents. But yeah, it's a weird dynamic. He invented a very weird world. It's very interesting. I like it a lot. I'm not uh, shitting on it. I'm just saying that the dynamics are so different from our world. It's interesting to think about how that would change the society, because it would significantly
Yeah, huge,
change society.
huge ways. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and well, I guess so. Like you were saying before, you have people like Yasna Colin that now have wield a lot of power,
Yes.
right? So in that sense, women can rise all the way to the top, right? I mean, because
Hmm.
they're going to be more world wise because they can read, while
Yes.
these other dudes are just dependent on word of mouth and a lot of. It seems like a lot of war. It seems
Yeah,
like war is huge in this world.
it's another thing. Like, I mean, you would the education would have to be so strict and stringent, otherwise all the men would just be inarticulate fucking buffoons. Like, they would be
Yeah,
cavemen. They
yeah.
can't, I mean, at least when they talk, they would, even if they could think intelligent thoughts, their ability to communicate without being able to read, like, they're relying
It's a
completely
lot of
on
mimicry.
getting an oral education, which would be
Yeah, it
very
would.
fucking difficult.
Yeah, yeah, because it'd be based on just mimicry, right?
Yeah.
And you're not. I can't imagine. I was just trying to picture that because it would just be parroting sounds and phrases and other people, like how people articulate things and gesticulate things because you're not thinking it through. At least I don't
Everything
think
would
you
be
would be
oral.
if you're
Like,
not
when
reading
someone's
it.
talking to you and saying words, they got to tell you what the words mean that they're saying. Like, obviously you can pick up languages, but once you start to be articulate, it's not just learn how to talk. It's learn how to express yourself in
Yeah, I
a
don't think
much
through
broader way.
problems.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so to do that without reading, the oral tradition of education would have to be very fucking significant. And then you think of their society and how agrarian it is, and how it's not a society that has a high level of technology and sophistication, where you would think that they would not have the amount of time to give a thorough,
hmm.
proper oral education. So you'd think, most people, their kids would be working 16-hour days just to fucking feed themselves. And there's magic in the world, so that changes the dynamic a little bit. But you would think, like, most of the poor people would be barely able to communicate. Like, I mean,
Well, so
just a very
this.
basic, very dumb. They would just sound very inarticulate to anybody who could like read and had a solid education.
Well, there are these examples. I mean, you have like indigenous tribes. I mean, largely agrarian, hunters, gatherers, and they'd have like a yeoman or whatever, a medicine man, right? They would have certain people that represent like their theology, and then
Mm,
but it was all very much spoken. A lot
yeah.
of it spoken. That's why a lot of it's gone. A lot of it's lost from like the Native American tribes. But yeah, so there are examples that that we've had throughout our human history in our world that he could base this on. Which, yeah, it's interesting to because of the sophistication that they have to have even like the storm. What the fuck? Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the Yasna
Stormfather.
Colin has one. No, Yasna Colin
Oh,
has
the
one.
Soulcaster.
Yeah, so I mean to have that sort of capability mixed into a world that that you just like described, where you have half of the world doesn't read virtually, and then also mix in all like the slaves and the others that don't seem to care whatsoever about, I guess, philosophy, theology. Although it's an interesting mix because it seems like war is extraordinarily prevalent in this world. Yet you have the dynamic of Shallan and Yasna Kholin, where they talk about all these different sciences and philosophy, and so there is study going on. There's sciences and there's the ardents and everything.
You would just think like the thing that always kind of like trips me up is not that it would be impossible without reading to have a quality education and to be articulate. It's just you would have to spend so much more time, and it does not seem like that there is this amount of time spent on education for the men. They're sent off to fight wars at an early age, or they're fucking farmers and this kind of stuff.
Or I guess
it doesn't seem like there's this big community where they're sitting around having classes and education, and they're sitting talking to the wise elder, and like I'm not seeing any of that aspect of society. So it would seem like the education gap should be much greater than it is.
So in Kaladin's example, most of the kids he grew up with were farmers, right? And he was an apprentice to his father.
Yeah.
He was going to be a surgeon. So it seems like it's kind of the guild system.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah, right? and Kaladin is more educated than the people around him.
And that's clear. And they resent him for it. And that's where the natural cultures work. And that's what Sanderson has this
and to
working,
a point, like if you're doing this in a book, like obviously he can't go the route and just make everybody a bunch of inarticulate idiots. You can't, who wants to read that? So there's got to be a little bit of a suspension of disbelief. But like when you like pin down, like what would this type of stuff do to a society? I think it would be much more drastic than even he's written. He's obviously written a world that, the differences that he's written into the world, they play out. There are aspects that change the behavior of the people, and we see different behavior than we would expect, and it's based off of the type of society and culture that they have. But you would think like the reading thing, you would think that would have a much bigger impact than it does. But it's very interesting. I'm glad he put it in there because it's different. It's weird. It doesn't it doesn't make any kind of sense to me, but it's interesting to read.
Yeah, I was going to say, even when there can be some what seems like logical inconsistencies, I appreciate the changes because it does kind of force you to challenge your own mind and like what we just did. What would this actually look like? How different would the world be if this were the case? And tease that out. It's cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. And so we find out from Kaladin, he's talking to this guy and he sees that the slave's got his hand behind his back, and he's immediately you just see he's talking about, I'm not going to be paranoid, but that soldier paranoia immediately pops out. He's like, is that a knife? It's like, no, that was ridiculous. None of these slaves could have a weapon. The leaves hidden in Kaladin's belt were as close as one could get, but old instincts could not be banished easily. So Kaladin watched that hand. Immediately shows this dude's, even still, he's got those instincts. He's on edge. He's not lost that. And
we get that throughout, especially what ends up coming up with him diagnosing things. He has his whole history is baked in. And it's not going away just because he's gone through shit.
No. And I like the guy asking him, we learn, you've tried to escape before. They said, you have escaped before. Kaladin made no reply. Look, the slave said, moving his hand out from behind his rags and revealing his bowl of slop. It was half full. Take me with you next time, he whispered. I'll give you this, half my food from now until then. And then Kaladin's like, you're an idiot. If you give me half your food, you're not going to be able to travel. And he's like, and you just can't do it. You can't escape. There is no escape. They'll find you. We have brands on our foreheads. Yeah. Everybody's going to see we're a slave. They're going to see that they can make money selling us back to the slaves. They're not going to trust us. They're going to think we're dangerous. There's not, so you can't get help. And if you're in the middle of nowhere, like how do you get the fuck out? If you don't have someone you can turn to hide you and help you, like how do you get out of this situation? So they're screwed. So even though he's escaped a bunch, it's never worked out.
Yeah, and it seems like that last glyph they talk about, they refer to it a number of times where it's like, oh, this one. They marked him dangerous, so it's like, oh, that guy, you got to watch that guy. And they're always kind of talking about that. Like, it seems like you can tell anyway. He walks around differently.
Like, they talk about like if someone's given that type of brand, usually you just kill the guy. You don't even bother with the brand. So that's why it's rare. It's like, why didn't they kill him? But yeah, and then he's like, every person he had tried to protect had ended up dead, time and time again. And now here he was in an even worse situation than where he'd begun. It was better not to resist. This was his lot, and he was resigned to it. There was a certain power in that, of freedom, the freedom of not having to care. Yeah, that sounds sweet. Sweet freedom. Sweet, sweet freedom.
Well, and again, this is him trying to, this chapter is interesting in the sense that he keeps trying to like argue with himself. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to be like that anymore. But then he fucking is.
He's fighting.
He acts
his
like
instinct.
he's not going to care. Yeah, and he's acting like, well, I'm not going to care because that's hurt me in the past. So I'm just going to be different this time. But he's unsuccessful, which again, he's unsuccessful. It seems like just about everything he's trying to do. Even though he is successful, he's just not reaching the success that he wants. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We get a couple pieces of world building info, just kind of not massive information that's super pertinent, but we see like the grass that they're rolling over, it disappears as they're rolling over it.
That's
and then
so
when
cool.
they go past it, it pops back up. So it's like kind of like they're almost like got their own little red carpet, roadway.
It's so cool to, it's really cool to picture, man. It's like it seems like, they put such an emphasis on the high storms that it seems like this affects everything in the world. Everything's trying to survive.
Yeah.
And in a way, our world's like that, but, our world basically thrives. It doesn't have to hide,
Yeah, I mean, animals have to adjust to their environment, or plants have to adjust to their environment. And so, we see it here too. Because their environment is like they live in a world where hurricanes just pop up everywhere.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was going to say that. So as we get it a little bit later, it does seem like they're very much like hurricanes, it seems.
Yeah.
And they come pretty quick. But also, interestingly enough, after he destroys the map, we find out there's a mathematical like equation to figure out when these storms come.
Yeah.
So you actually know when the storms will come if you make the effort to sort of figure that out, which is interesting. But I like that about the grass, and like it seems like everything in our world it's alive, but it's almost feels more alive because it's quicker. Like the advancement of like the different types of plants hiding and then blooming like really quickly. It seems like it happens just like really fast. Like it comes out, goes back in. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, grass is 100% alive. If you cut your grass, you're a murderer.
They're all screaming.
Yeah.
You just can't hear it. You don't have the right frequency to be able to hear.
Just because you can't speak the same language as grass doesn't mean you should be out there killing it.
So if you had, I love picturing this now. It's so sadist. But if you had the right frequency, you would literally hear every single blade.
It hurts so bad.
And they're pleading for their lives. No! The next row up is just pleading. Jesus.
He's chopping her head off again.
It's a massive holocaust every time you landscape.
Yeah.
That's so brutal. But it looks nice, Yeah. Trying to keep it thriving,
Yeah, it's worth it.
As Dan tries to kill a bug.
Yeah. But, yeah.
Like a murderer.
Stupid moth flew in my face. That's what you get, moth.
It's trying to live, dude.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to live without you in my face. But yeah, and then we get the mention of the storms. And he's like, the high storms were incredibly powerful. Plants had learned to survive. That's what you have to do. Learn to survive. Brace yourself. Weather the storm. But yeah, and then when we'll get the description of the storm later. But yeah, it sounds like a hurricane. I mean, the way they're described, it just seems like a massive hurricane rolling through, and not a fun one. Like some hurricanes are super kind of fun, but not these. These seem dangerous.
It's pretty. It's interesting though because of how much they emphasize. Everybody's storm blessed. It's always storm father. It seems like the storm seems to be like the life of this world. It's so prevalent, and it seems. Is it the storm that charges, or is it they feel like the storm brings the electricity that charges their their fucking orbs and shit?
Yeah, when the storms charge their gemstones.
So I mean, they're dependent, or at least they've built their society around these things, and they even build like the society, like where Shallan ends up being. It's like there are walls built to protect the city from the winds, and there's all these bells and shit.
Yeah, they very much have to design their living system, and to the point this caravan has to be able to plant itself down, cover up the cages, lock the thing down, chain it down so it doesn't get blown over. And even then, there's still like, if a boulder gets picked up, it could get easily tossed in. So I mean, like that's a massive hurricane if it's picking up boulders and chucking them. Like we had a tropical storm this year, and I mean it was just a heavy rain. It wasn't like, and like leading up to it, my mom kept warning me about it, and I was like, I don't care about a tropical storm. Like it is not going to be anything. It's going to be as minor. It's going to be a bad storm. It's going to rain hard.
I'm picturing you on top of the house, on top of the roof.
Lieutenant Dan in it.
And exactly. In like a basket, yelling at God.
Is that all you got? Bring it,
dude.
Yeah, and then he throws a boulder at me.
I love the idea of a guy that does that every storm. Yeah, every time it storms, he goes up on his roof.
It's like
he has a porch just built.
Why does that guy have a big pole with a basket on top of his roof? Like, wait, just wait.
Yeah,
you'll see it. Wait until we get a storm.
He's been struck by lightning like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, it's a metal basket. It's like, I'm telling you, man, the guy's insane. He's insane. But it's hilarious, man. Lieutenant Dan in
it. It's
what's he do for a living? Oh, he's a shrimp fisherman.
Wow, so he's really just living that life. Yeah. He's just taking the life of a character and rolling with it. Although I saw there's a character in that John Candy, Dan Aykroyd movie from like the 80s where they go on like a vacation trip to what seems like the Ozarks or something. There's a character that's been struck by lightning like 12 times or something. I just thought about that guy. I don't remember much about him, but yeah. There you go. Well, the great outdoors. That's what it is.
Oh yeah. Where they get like the bear attack and that kind of stuff and the mudslide.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good parts in it. I like John Candy. I miss that dude. He was enjoyable.
Did he quit?
Yeah, he quit a long time ago.
Yeah.
He just hung up his acting robe.
Well, I hope he's enjoying retirement.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, let's all hope that way.
But yeah, so then, talks about those kind of things. Then another guy comes up to him, and this guy just wants to shoot the shit. Like, so apparently, like, these slaves, like, they're scared shitless of him, but they're intrigued by him. Like, Kaladin's, he's that kind of dude where people are like, this is scary, but I kind of want to fucking hang out with this guy and find out what his deal is. And so, yeah, he's got timid fans coming up to him. And I like this guy's like, he's like, what'd you do? And can't get him to talk. And he's like, me? I stole a herd of chol. If I'd taken one chol, they might have just beaten me. But a whole herd, 17 head, he chuckled to himself, admiring his own audacity. That's one way to have a personality about being a slave. It's like, oh man, I did some crazy shit.
Yeah, this reminded me. Their whole back and forth reminded me of this fucking Coen Brothers movie where this guy's getting hung, and he just like his only words are like, "Killed the wrong man's," which is why I'm here. And it's just like there's people out there worse than me. He says something along those lines where it's like, I just got caught. There's way worse people fucking out there murdering people and shit. But yeah, he's trying to get him to open up. What'd you do to get made a slave? And Kaladin is just like, he starts asking him questions. He's question-based sales. What'd you do to get caught?
Yeah.
How'd you get caught? Well, I think that. It was a woman, of course. Should have known she'd sell me.
Yeah.
Like
Kaladin shouldn't have stolen Shoals. Too slow. Horses would have been better. Horses? Do you think me a madman? If I'd been caught stealing those, I'd have been hanged. I would rather be hanged.
Oh yeah, so I guess that was the part I was thinking.
If I'm going to take that risk, and one of them gets me hanged, and one of them makes me a slave to live this brutal existence, like I'm just gonna go for the fucking Big Bang, the horse, and the easier getaway.
That was what I was thinking of, where it's just like, well, okay, you went half measured on it, but if you're gonna do it, I mean, probably don't do it at all. That way you're not becoming a slave or getting hanged. But, I mean, becoming a slave? Doesn't seem like it was worth it, bro.
No.
Plus, you steal a whole herd? Why? So you can brag? Did you need all that shit? Like, because it didn't work out for you. So, seems like you could have just done the horses then.
No, just, I mean, if you're worried about, like, I don't want to be hanged, like, what did you want to be a slave? Just steal one. You said you could have got off with one.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, man? Like, your risk-reward fucking system is all out of whack. The dumbass risk-reward system you have for yourself. That's why you're a slave, buddy.
That would have been a good way for Kaladin to go. Just literally lay into him in that regard.
Yeah. And, then we also get that the fact that Kaladin knows glyphs. When he talks about the glyphs, he reads the glyph on the guy's head, and he's like, "Man, you know glyphs? You must have an even better story than I thought, friend." Then it says that Windspren was still there, moving between patches of grass. How long it had been following him? At least a couple months now. That was downright odd. Maybe it wasn't the same one. They were impossible to tell apart. There are many reasons why I'm here, Kaladin said. Failures, crimes, betrayals, probably the same for most of us, every one of us here. And then he says, I killed a Light Eyes. And he's like, I'm surprised they let you live. Killing the Light Eyes isn't why I was made a slave. It's the one I didn't kill. That's the problem. Because we don't know what's happened exactly yet. Obviously we do reading forward. But the first time you're going through, you don't know why he's a slave. It's a surprise. What my initial thought is that the Shard Bearer guy killed his army and he got enslaved because they lost.
Mm-hmm.
Is that's what you're thinking? But then when
that'd be irrational,
at Amaran, the 2 chapters later, then it's like, well, something different happened. It's not, it's not just we lost and I got made a slave.
You got betrayed.
Yeah, but when this part happened, then but that's the first one. It's the one I didn't kill. That's the problem. Even there, I'm thinking it's because he didn't kill the Shard Bearer. He killed that one, but he didn't kill that Shard Bearer, and so that's why he's a slave.
That's who he was going after, right? Isn't that was the whole point?
He was going after. Yeah, he thought he was going after the leader of that crew, and then after he killed that guy, then some Shard Bearer comes rolling up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
After that, and that's how the chapter ends. So we and you haven't gotten exactly what happened there. You're still still don't have the full story, but you'll eventually get it. But at this point, you don't have it, and so it's just kind of what that'd be something to ask. I mean, what is your kind of guess as far as to what happened, why he was made a slave? Do you have a guess? You have thoughts on it? Like what might have happened?
He's talking about betrayal. He's talking about, and obviously he's pissed at Amaram. It seems like Amaram sold him out. It's hard for me to be able to piece together why, because I'm kind of I'm trying to go through quickly, but I haven't got that much progress. But I mean, I don't know. I guess it seems like Amaran sold him out somehow, put him in harm's way in some way. I don't know, man. Because I don't get how this system works. It seems like he would have to. Well, okay, so the first mark he had was for deserting, but then the slaver even knows. If I remember right, doesn't the slaver even say that he knows he didn't desert?
Yeah.
So my guess was he didn't. He did something that Amaran didn't want him to do. My guess, from what I know about Kaladin thus far, it seems like he did what to him is the right thing, but he was ordered to do something different. So Amaran's like, we got to get this fucking guy out of here. He's not following orders. I don't know. That's my guess. Knowing from Kaladin thus far, it seems like he does the honorable thing. Although there was a point with him and his father where they go back and forth with it's honorable to kill in certain situations. I don't remember. I'm going to fuck up the quote, but it basically becomes, what if you're killing to save others? It's kind of
he's like you're. I think his dad saying was like, you're either someone who saves lives or you take lives, and he's like, well, there's a third option: someone who takes lives to save lives.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't Kaladin eventually, if I remember right, he admits that he's wrong. It's just
that's when he's like going super. He's at super emo mode, and he's like, "No, I was wrong." He's like, "There's those that take lives and save lives, and then there's the people who are getting fucking murdered, like that are just like the playthings to these to these people."
It feels like that. So it's so there's basically just those people getting wasted.
It's like you got these two groups, they're the main characters, and then you got all these NPCs, and we're just getting wiped
slaughtered.
out.
Yeah. It seems like Kaladin is the guy that's going to be like, he's going to go back and forth. He's going to be like, yeah, there's just the two, but I'll still do the third. Fuck it.
Yeah.
He's a soldier, and that seems to be where he excels. Although when he's in Bridge 4, it seems like he's going 100% of just saving and putting himself in harm's way to literally do that, which is fucking pretty awesome character. Pretty great.
Yeah.
His character arc is very interesting from the jump, and I'm very interested to see what goes on with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a huge part of book. This first book, there's, so much great stuff with Kaladin.
Although, actually, it's interesting because when you ask that question, I'm starting to question in my own mind, because there's always the possibility of the narrator not being dependable, and the where I can see that with Kaladin is when he is super emo. So he's letting his emotion color his perceptions. So you could look at it as, well, here he's super emo, or at some point he's super emo, so maybe that's coloring perception of what happened, and maybe Amaran's not that bad. But at the same time, I feel like he's quite dependable, and I'm kind of trusting his judgment. If someone's a piece of shit, he thinks they're a piece of shit. Seems like it's probably, I'm going to take his word until, Sanderson proves otherwise, basically.
Yeah.
But I like that. I like I like that color of, or that element of, not confusion, but that element of.
Sanderson does that a lot in these stories, where a lot of the backdrops, the going back, the whatever the flashbacks, there's a mystery. Like we know that it's affecting the person in the present, and this is weighing on them. And then there's flashbacks that start telling us the backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly,
so we get pieces why he's this way.
Yeah. So we figure out,
great.
Eventually figure out what happens. He gives us those payoffs, but a lot of the book is with one character, with two characters. It's them dealing with something, and we don't know exactly why they're dealing with it or what happened, but eventually we find it out through flashbacks. And so that's definitely what's going on with Kaladin in this first book. But some of the other pieces we get there are obviously we start to see that the wind sprint is different. It's like how long it had been following him, at least a couple months now. That was downright odd. And then we also get that when he hears someone coughing, he's like persistent coughing, a part of Kaladin's mind thought, accompanied by an excess of phlegm and fevered mumbling at night. Sounds like the grindings. We start to see that he's got that medical background as he's diagnosing him.
I especially like on the next page, lessons drilled into Kaladin by his father, whispered in the back of his brain, giving the proper way to care for a burn, apply a salve to prevent infection, wash once daily. Those memories weren't a comfort, they were an annoyance. He didn't have flower leaf sap or Lister's oil. He didn't even have water for the washing. Here he's talking about his burns on his head.
Yeah.
But it's so great because it's putting you in his mind and you're getting backstory. It's delivering a lot all at once. And it's all in his mind, it's like animosity. Like now he doesn't want to know because now it's pissing him off because he doesn't have what he needs to be able to care for it properly. But it's a source of frustration, which is really, it's an interesting way to deliver that because he knows what needs to be done. He doesn't want to know because he like wants to sit here in his suffering because he is like super emo dude that's all pissed off about it. But he knows it well. That's the other thing is like the way the lists get delivered, he knows this shit well, like really, really well. So he definitely is good at his craft. So we get that too.
Yeah, that's demonstrated significantly as we go along, and it's important to his character. I mean, it's into his personality. You know, this guy that wants to be a savior, ability to heal definitely helps him in that regard. We also get the Thaylens scar, a swath of deep red stars that stood out vibrantly from the twinkling white ones. It was high in the sky this season, so they've named the stars after one of the heralds. The one, where we saw in the prelude, Kalak and Jezrin were talking about that Thaylens was the one left behind, and Thaylens scar. So they look at these heralds as these deity figures to the point where they're talking about stars and naming them after the heralds. And Thaylens is the guy that got left behind.
That's cool
because he likes it. He enjoys the torture, and it's something he's really into. Sadist. He would really love being with Kaladin. He would be a guy that Kaladin would hate because he would be so peppy about it. He'd be peppy about everything that he's going through.
Did we speculate that on the last one that he's into it? That's why they
So he never gives up.
Well, yeah, he didn't have a choice. But I'm glad you made that connection because I had that note, but I knew that name from somewhere else, but I didn't connect the two. But yeah, that's great. That builds out that world. Even just the fact that they name the stars. Plus, also you have deep red stars along with basically what we have on the white twinkling ones. Don't they have? They have 2 suns or 2 moons?
They have 3 moons, I think.
Yeah, 3 moons. Yeah, and they're like different colors and like I don't know. We'll get to that, but I remember that was something I came across.
Well, they also have just a completely different weather system.
Yeah, right? So like the season's like a couple weeks?
Yeah, they were talking about like seasons will change, they usually last a couple weeks, but and then they'll change and then they'll change back and stuff like that. Like that's a completely different weather system. Obviously their planet is not rotating the same way.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And the different moons. Yeah, it's definitely that's interesting. I like it.
But yeah, we also get, he talks about how when he thinks about the guy that's got the cough, he's like, once Kaladin would have been quick to go help, but something within him had changed. So many people he tried to help were now dead. It seemed to him irrationally that the man would be better off without his intervention. After failing Tien, then Dalit and his team, then 10 successive groups of slaves, it was hard to find the will to try again. So it's the first time we hear of Tien. Dalit, obviously, we met. But they just mentioned Tien. You don't know that's his brother until later on. But, he mentions that he failed him. So he had failed him before he failed Dalit. So we know that at some point fucking
Shit
Tien's
gets
getting
bad.
fucking getting fucked. So that would be a very difficult thing because like you've got to a point where you've seen him with Tien. Tien's his little brother.
Yeah.
And so obviously with Kaladin's personality, this is feeling like
it's going to be massive.
he let him down, failed him, would have a massive impact on him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what exactly happens there, because early on, or when I think I just recently went through one of those chapters where they go back there and he has that fight with the kid when they don't think he knows how to fight, and he like finds what he's good at. It's pretty cool the way when you read it, it's like, this is so natural for me. This is what I should be doing. And his brother's like right there watching. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge to his backstory because, I mean, obviously, that's probably the first big frickin' blow. That and like what happens to his father, I'm sure, is going to be a big blow. And maybe the girl, I don't know. But those things, and especially that, I guess, Tien, because we hear that a couple times, I think, before we even meet him. I remember thinking Tien was possibly like a girl he knew early on. And then you find out, oh, it's his brother.
Yeah. Definitely gonna learn more about that, but then we get that Tvlakov is the slave the slave owner. He's the guy running the caravan, and you had lanky Terran, the serving boy, tended the choles. The large crustaceans were nearly as big as wagons themselves. So you got these big ass choles, which seems like crabs.
I was going to say they seem like crab oxes.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very
funny to picture.
Different animal system in this world.
Very big
crustacean,
man. Like, their ecosystem's totally different. And picturing, I mean, what's cool is you can picture it. It's just weird because where's the water? Well, I guess it rains a lot, right? And if I remember right, at the end of like the day, they just kind of go into their shell, and there's just like a ball. It's like looks like a boulder, but it sounds like they're big as oxes.
Yeah, and so Tvlakov comes up to them. He's checking on the slaves, and as he's checking on them, Kaladin, it starts talking about that he's got these poisonous leaves. He doubted anyone else in the caravan knew how to recognize blackbane, narrow leaves on a tray full prong. So it hadn't been too much of a risk. Absently, he took the leaves out and rubbed them between his fingers and palm. They had to be dry before reaching their potency. Why did he carry them? Did he mean to give them to Tvlakov and get revenge? Or were they contingency to be retained in case things got too bad, too unbearable? Surely I haven't fallen that far, he thought. It was just more likely his instinct of securing a weapon whenever he saw one, no matter how unusual. I mean, I would definitely be that far.
Yeah, 100%.
After 10 failed attempts to escape, and all the people you've seen fucking get murked, I'm not holding up as well as Kaladin does. Even though he's got a very dark mood, my mood would be much darker and much more depressed. I would not handle this very well.
Every time I see scenes like this in movies and TV shows where someone knows they're about to be made captive, and they go for a weapon and then leave it, I want to smack him in the fucking face.
Yeah.
It's always worth the effort. I don't give a shit, man. Just to hide it. Put it somewhere. I don't know. Yeah. But have that thing, and maybe you use it, maybe you don't, but I would have it for sure.
But I love the part here with Syl where she comes up. She's like, oh, soft feminine voice said, what's that? Translucent figure, just a handspan tall, peeked up from the edge of the floor near Kaladin. She climbed up and into the wagon as if scaling some high plateau. The windspren had taken the shape of a young woman. Larger spren could change shapes and sizes. With an angular face and long flowing hair that faded into the mist behind her head, she, Kaladin couldn't help but think of the windspren as a she, was formed of pale blues and whites and wore a simple flowing white dress of a girlish cut that came down to mid-calf. Like the hair, it faded into mist at the very bottom. Her feet, hands, and face were crisply distinct, and she had her hips and bust of a slender woman. Kaladin frowned at the spirit. Spren were all around. You just ignored them most of the time, but this one was an oddity. The windspren walked upward As if climbing an invisible staircase, she reached a height where she could stare at Kaladin's hands, so he closed his fingers around the black leaves. She walked around his fist in a circle, although she glowed like an afterimage from looking at the sun. Her form provided no real illumination. She bent down, looking at his hand from different angles, like a child expecting to find a hidden piece of candy. What is it? Her voice was like a whisper. You can show me. I won't tell anyone. Is it a treasure? Have you cut off a piece of the knight's cloak and tucked it away? Is it the heart of a beetle, so tiny yet powerful? Like the childishness wonder of Syl cracks me up.
Yeah, especially with the circumstance and where Kaladin's head's at and everything else. It's a great playoff.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
it's a great way
they're in very different states of mind.
I mean,
and especially when he's like trying to hide this fucking poison, and she's like, "Ooh, what is that? Is that a treasure?" And he's sitting there thinking, like, he's like, "Man, have I really fallen so far that I would take this to kill myself?" And she's like, "Ooh, what do you got?"
And he's basically holding cyanide, and she's like, "Oh, is that a gift?
Walking upstairs that don't exist."
Yeah, it's pretty.
Like, what is this fucking thing?
The whole description's great. This is what I think I was talking about this in the last episode, but this description in itself, this is one of the most important things as far as I'm concerned. If they make this a show, this is vitally important that it's done a certain way, so it's not super cheesy and campy. You know what I mean? Because it becomes a kid's show the second this is done a certain way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And I haven't personally really seen something that has walked that line. I'm sure there's stuff out there, but I haven't seen some things personally that walk that line where you'd have something this whimsical mixed into a super dark world. Actually, as soon as I say that, Kick-Ass comes to mind. That's a great one. That does do that really well. That doesn't really fit for this, but
yeah, I think it does. Because it is such a dark world, I think it fits to have like a whimsical thing where it doesn't make it childlike, because everything else surrounding it is so dark. It makes it it's like Elodin and those kind of characters, or Ari, where it's like they're so different. They don't fit in the world. If the world was like that, if the world was whimsical, then it's different. Yeah. Then it becomes a kid's story. The world is not whimsical. She stands out. She is different from what we see in the rest of the story. The rest of the story is not like her. So it's just, it makes her a unique character and a whimsical character, but that's it makes it funny. It lightens it up a little bit, and it's not so heavy.
Yeah, I like it. It's great. In terms of the books, it's great. And it pulls Kaladin out, and it fucks with him too, because he's like, what the fuck's going on here? And he knows he looks crazy because he's talking to something nobody else can see.
Yeah, and
Not
then
that it matters because it's, his group isn't, I don't think he's too worried about the judgment from them.
And then when she says his name, and she's like, Kaladin, why must you ignore me? Kaladin started, what'd you say? She smiled mischievously, then sprang away, her figure blurring into a long white ribbon of blue-white light. Storm you, Kaladin said, leaping to his feet. Spirit, what did you say? Repeat that. Spren. And then he's like, Spren didn't use people's names. Sprens weren't intelligent. The larger ones, like Wind Spren or River Spren, could mimic voices and expressions, but they didn't actually think. They didn't. And then he's asking the rest of the crew, like, hey, did anybody else hear that? No one else heard it. So we're starting to get the sense that this is different. Something different's happening. Because these things are not intelligent, and this is clearly intelligent. This person is clearly intelligent.
Well, and then that it's exceptional, but that means Kaladin is exceptional. Because why is she choosing him?
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's definitely some things going on here.
Really starts to lay out something different's going on. And then I like the fact that, he's flipping out over that, and then he's like, the Windspren had said his name, but undoubtedly she just repeated what she'd heard before. But none of the men in the cage knew his name. Maybe I'm going mad, Kaladin thought, seeing things that aren't there, hearing voices. Then he gets those leaves look interesting, she said, the same feminine voice. You like them a lot, don't you? Love that aspect of it, because, he's just looking at them like, maybe I'm holding these to kill myself, and then she's just looking at them like
you love
he's
those.
got the fucking best fucking leaves. Like, he's so happy about them. He's got such a great treasure in his hand that he just loves them so much. Like his mindset versus how she's interpreting it. It's a funny juxtaposition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when he's asking her, like, how do you know my name? She's like, I don't know. She said, as if surprised herself. But I'll just go through the whole thing. She's like, how do you know my name? He demanded. The Windsprint didn't answer. She walked on air over to the bars and poked her head out, watching Tavlakov, the slaver administer drinks to the last few slaves in the wagon. She looked back at Kaladin. Why don't you fight? You did before. Now you stop. Why do you care, Spirit? She cocked her head. I don't know, as if surprised at herself. But I do. Isn't that odd? It was more than odd. What did he make of a Spren that not only used his name, but seemed to remember things that he had done weeks ago? People don't eat leaves, Kaladin, she said, folding her translucent arms. Then she cocked her head. Or do you? I can't remember. You're so strange. Stuffing some things into your mouth, leaking out other things when you don't think anyone is looking. How do you know my name? He whispered. How do you know it? I know it because it's mine. My parents told me it. I don't know. Well, I don't either, she said, nodding as if she'd won some grand argument. Fine, he said. But why are you using my name? Because it's polite, and you are impolite. Spren don't know what that means. See there, she said, pointing at him. Impolite.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, their whole back and forth where it's like she's understanding things she shouldn't understand. She's even surprised by it, which is great. But
yeah, she doesn't even know what's going on.
Yes, but she also knows what kind of reminds me of Wit in a way where she's really good at talking some shit.
Yeah.
She's doing it in a very clever way, like where he's like, Spren don't know what that means. See, right there. Impolite.
Impolite. You're a jerk.
You're a fucking jerk. What's wrong with you, dude? But I mean, even like the little bit of, there's some existentialism, how do you know my name? How do you know it? Well, I know it because it's mine. My parents told it to me. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know either. What do these names mean? Is that what you are? Are you your name? I like it. It's great. The whole back and forth, just like it's so interesting to mix in, again, something so whimsical with a dude in this state who's about to kill himself. And she's like, oh, those are cool leaves.
Yeah.
Those are nice. You like your cyanide? That's cool. What are you doing? What's your name? Like, and just fucking with him. Like, and like you were saying earlier, like when he's got the bowl, it's like, really? Now? This is what you do? This is what you do now to me? Me, of all people? You're going to fuck with me?
And poking him, like, as he's, like, trying to give up and just not. And she's like, so, why don't you fight? Why are you bitching out? Why'd you quit? And he's like, I can't fight. You did before. So tired. He didn't mean the physical fatigue, though 8 months eating leftovers had stolen much of his lean strength he'd cultivated while at war. Felt tired, even when he got enough sleep, even on those rare days when he wasn't hungry, cold, or stiff from a beating. So tired. You've been tired before. I've failed, Spirit, he replied, squeezing his eyes shut. Must you torment me so? They were all dead. Sin and Dalit, and before that, Tux and the Takers, before that, Tian, before that, blood on his hands in the corpse of a young girl with pale skin. So they're all fucking dead. Like, now we know, like, that it's not just he failed them. He failed them to the point they're all dead. So we know his brother is getting fucking murked.
So it seems to me he was right so I can actually talk about something I've read. He was right when he told his father he shouldn't do this. Because that first time when he thinks he can save the girl and he can't, he does a great fucking job, but she dies. And he's like, I can't do this shit. I can't do this shit. I can't do this shit.
No, you'll get used to it.
You're great at this. You'll get used to it. It's a hard part of the job. It's like, he's not built for this, man. He's more built for murdering people, it seems like, than trying to save them. Although I'm sure I'm going to read a lot of him saving people, and actually I already have.
But what he can't deal with is the loss.
Yeah,
he cannot deal with failing, and like he cannot handle it.
Well, and it's one thing to fail when he's tried to, protect people in war. It's still war. They're going to be lost, and in a way you can deal with it. But when it's surgery and literally it's him that is at fault if he can't save. That's fucking brutal.
Yeah,
That
I
is
mean,
brutal.
you don't want to put this guy in a situation where there's a guaranteed high percentage of the people he tries to save, he's not going to save them.
Yeah, he needs like 70%.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He needs those odds. He needs to be in like outpatient surgery is what he needs to be doing.
Like he's just dealing with people that got the sniffles. He's giving them, he's giving them some Tylenol and some fucking Benadryl and letting them
feel better.
Fucking move
All right,
on.
good. Yeah, he needs.
Fucking crushed it. Person had a cold, they're feeling great now. Fucking just dominating everybody. I'm saving everybody.
Yeah, he'd be better off. He'd be a lot happier than this sort of thing. Yeah, it's brutal.
Then we get that Tvlakov is a big old piece of shit. So,
but he's kind of likable, though.
Yeah. To
Kind
an
of a
extent.
likable piece of shit.
Yeah. But, yeah, he's kind of a piece of shit. Like, because Kaladin's like, I'm not getting involved. I'm not going to fucking do it. I'm not doing it. And then, he hears his dad's voice, and his father's voice. Can you really leave him, son? Let him die when you could have helped? Storm it? Stop, Kaladin yelled, standing. And then he tells him what it is, how to take care of it. Tvlakav's like, all right, pull him out. And then Kaladin's immediately thinking like, okay, there, I did my good deed. And then they just fucking bash the dude over the head a couple times and kill him.
Yeah, I guess I forgot about that. Is that Tvlakov that swings the mallet or whatever?
Bluth grabbed the slaves under the arm, dragged him out, and all the while trying to keep a nervous eye on Kaladin. Kaladin's last failed escape attempt had involved 20 armed slaves. His master should have executed him for that, but he claimed Kaladin was intriguing and branded him with the sash, then sold him for a pittance. There was always seemed to be a reason Kaladin survived when those around him, he tried to help, died. He spent some time under his previous master speaking with a slave from the west, a Seeley man who spoke of the old magic from the legends and its ability to curse people. Could that be what was happening to Kaladin? That's something, we'll come across again, like the old magic and these curses and stuff like that, the stuff that's mentioned. But he says the cage doors snapped back in place, locking. The cage were necessary. Tvlakov had to protect his fragile investment from the high storms. The cages had wooden sides that could be pulled up and locked into place during the furious gales. Kaladin felt himself relax. There, he told himself, perhaps you can still help. Perhaps there's a reason to care. Kaladin opened his hand and looked down at the crumbled black leaves in his palm. He didn't need these. Sneaking them into Tvlakov's drink would not only be difficult, but pointless. Did he really want the slaver dead? What would that accomplish? A low crack rang in the air, followed by a second one, duller, like someone dropping a bag of grain. Kaladin snapped his head up, looking to where Bluth had deposited the sixth slave. The mercenary raised his cudgel one more time, then snapped it down, the weapon making a cracking sound as it hit the slave's skull. No, Kaladin yelled, leaping across the cage and slamming his hands against the bars. Storm you. He couldn't live, you bastard. So yeah, big jerk move. Big old fucking jerk move.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal. And this is not helping Kaladin's whole trying to help people shit.
No, especially when Kaladin's like, all this dude needs is some water. You got a little bit of like whatever he said, sprinkle a little bit of that in there if you got it. But just give him an extra ladle of water and he'll be fine.
A little bit of sugar is all he asked for.
And Tvlakov's like, Tvlakov is in a bad position, what he's doing. Like, I'm sure he's done some fucking terrible shit to even just be in this position. But in the position he is, he's ignorant. He obviously doesn't know what this is. And he's not going to just trust Kaladin. So his mind, he's thinking, I'm protecting my investment. I got to get this guy out of there so he didn't kill everybody and I lose everything. Obviously, you're a garbage person if that's your mindset, but
yeah, I like how he does what so many
there's
people
a logic
do,
to it.
Which he just doubles down on the BS. He would have gotten you all sick. You see, and then he's like, I would not lose an entire wagon for one man. And then Kaladin's He's past the spreading stage. If any of us were going to catch it, we'd have done so by now. Hope that you don't. I think he was past saving. He just keeps going in the same direction.
Yeah.
And he's just like, nah. I mean, he already did it, so it doesn't really fucking matter now. But yeah, it's just so many of these people do, or so many people tend to do that and just completely solidify the decision they made and not second guess it because he already murked this guy and broke his head open.
Yeah, telling Kaladin, you should bless me for saving you from that man's sickness. I'll bless your cairn while I pile it up myself. Kaladin replied to Tavlakov smiled, walking back toward the fire. Keep that fury, deserter, and that strength. It'll pay me well on our arrival. And then Kaladin's like, not if you don't live that long. He thought about poisoning him. Then he realized he dropped the flakes on the ground and then goes into super emo mode again with the, even in this, Kaladin failed. He sank down, his back to the bars, and bowed his head, defeated. The cursed windspren kept darting around him, looking confused.
Yeah, he's they really sink it in. This motherfucker. This chapter really sinks it in that he is a sad sack son of a bitch.
Understandably so, but yeah,
Yes.
he's in a very spot. I would be taking it worse than him. He takes it better than me. But yeah, he's not a happy dude. Yeah, understandably not a happy dude, but he is not a happy dude.
Yeah. So now I remember now why I thought Tavlakov was actually kind of cool. And it is in his description. Thaylens, he's Thaylens, and all Thaylens men had the same stark white beards, regardless of their age or the color of the hair on their heads, and white eyebrows.
Yeah.
Those eyebrows grew very long, and the Thaylens wore them pushed back over their ears. That made him appear to have 2 white streaks in his otherwise black hair. So black hair, white eyebrows, slicked up and back behind his ears. This dude looks so badass. I mean, that's just a dope as fuck look, dude.
They bring up another one with the eyebrows in the next chapter. I'll save comment on that guy in the next one, but his are even crazier.
Yeah, I think his are straight up. Yeah, I'm mixing the two, but such a badass look, and I think it's a business.
Wait, yeah, because is Tavlakov, does he have the fucking eyebrows?
Tavlakov has them, but they're pushed back over his ears.
Yeah,
they're not.
So, the other guy's got the crazy ones, but so apparently, Tavlakov and this other guy, same race of people. Yeah, they got some crazy eyebrows.
I'm saying though, man, I know eyebrow extensions exist for women, but I'm thinking let's get weird with it. Let's go all the way up and back. Remember those Oakley sunglasses that went over the head and back and like around? I don't know if you remember those.
Shave your head, but then pull the eyebrows back to be your hair.
That's your comb over?
Yeah.
It's literally just eyebrows.
Eyebrow comb over.
What's it going to feel like? So, and like really gel it.
Yeah.
And then when you blink, you're literally pulling, your hair pulls down. Yeah. Oh, wait, I'm thinking eyelashes. Eyebrows, yeah. Eyebrows up and back. Man. That's a good look. That's a strange, again, a weird thing about the ecosystem. We got crabs like oxes walk around on land, but also guys where their eyebrows just continuously flesh out and grow to huge extents.
That's how most eyebrows work.
No.
If you don't shave your eyebrows like at least once a week, they just keep growing.
Wow, once a week?
Yeah.
Holy shit, then you could do this.
Yeah.
You could probably pull this look off, man. Do it up, man. What a great look. Or you know what? I love the idea of like actually weaving it in too. You just weave it in to like braids. So you have like cornrows. And within those cornrows, you have your eyebrows. And if you furrow your brow, it just like pulls your hair.
The problem would be is you'd have to like staple them to the back of your neck because otherwise they're just gonna like keep falling over the front of your face.
Yeah, that would be very annoying. Then
you'd have to have them like taped down so it stays.
Anytime in my life I had hair somewhat long, the second it goes in my face, I'm like, all right, shave my head. Like I can't deal with this. This is the most annoying shit ever. I could never have long hair for that reason. Because literally the second it touches like my forehead, I'm like, that's it. cut all this shit off. But it's probably worth it for that eyebrow look, man. It's so badass.
For eyebrows, yeah, you'll do anything for that. But yeah, that's all I got on chapter 2.
I had to mention that, but yes, that is all I have.
All right, so chapter 3 is titled City of Bells. And in this chapter, we're going to meet Shallan as she arrives at Kharbranth, where she is looking to start a mentorship with Yasna Kalen.
So this is about Philadelphia?
Philadelphia?
Yeah. City of Bells?
Oh,
Liberty
City
Bell?
of Bells. Yep.
Flipadelphia.
Yep. And
That's what this is about.
That's their main source of income is they sell the flip cups.
They sell solo cups?
Yeah, they sell solo cups.
That's a big source of income for this town is solo cups.
Because they play Flipadelphia. They play the fucking flip cup drinking game.
Nice.
Built their whole economy around it. It's a weird economy, and they don't talk about it in the books, but it's in the subtext. You got to read it deep. But if you look deep, you can see that there's clearly they built their economy around drinking games and solo cups.
Build your economy around drinking games.
Yeah,
I like it. I feel like there'd be a lot of organization is big there.
Yeah, a lot of hard workers. Yeah, it's a good system. It really works. It works well. I mean, they got a fucking dope ass city. It looks like.
Yeah, actually, this city is really interesting with all the bells and seems like a huge. People call it a melting pot. This is more of a tossed salad with just a whole bunch of different cultures all represented. And you got, what do you call those? Not the hansom cab. Rickshaw. You got some rickshaws running around.
Yeah, and so
badass palace that's built into basically a big mountain. It's cool.
Yeah, and so we get Shallan. She talks about she never expected to be in this place. She expected that she was going to spend her life sequestered in her family's manor, and then she was going to get married off, and then be sequestered in his manor, whoever she got married off to.
What's interesting is her main thing is what we talked about earlier. She's reading books, which sounds pretty decent. Just chill and read.
The flip side of that is she gets to read and educate herself, but then she also could have been in a situation where, like, she gets married off some dude who's like, go fucking sit in your fucking room, and read your fucking books, and don't fucking come out unless I tell you to. When I tell you to come out, you just come out looking pretty. Keep that fucking yapper shut.
Okay. But then he would also, like we talked about earlier, he would be dependent on her for his questions about the world, apparently, because he can't read.
He could bring in fucking another chick to read to him.
I guess he could bring in. Jeez, this guy sucks. Who is this dude? Man,
that's the life she's describing. She's like, expected to be sequestered. I'm not like describing like how everybody else is. This is what she grew up in. So we're getting a very clear demonstration that Shallan did not have a quality upbringing if that's what she expected her life to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the line, but expectations were like fine pottery. The harder you held them, the more likely they were to crack. Kind of cool. Kind of applicable to our world. I don't know where the crack cocaine comes in, but I guess the harder you try to do something, the more likely you are to become addicted to crack.
Get rewarded.
Oh.
With crack.
Oh, you're saying it as a positive. Okay. Yeah, all right. Rewarded with crack. All right.
And speaking of crack, Kharbranth was enormous.
Oh, I thought
built up the side of a steep incline. The city was web-shaped as if it were built into a wide crack with the open side towards the ocean. So speaking of crack, it is built into crack. It's a city, a crack city.
Built on crack.
Crack
city built on crack. So it's crack in Flipadelphia.
Yeah.
Crack and flip cups. This is a party town, bro.
Yeah.
this is the place to be if you're here, trying to kick back and
it's part of their culture, man. Crack and drinking games. That's what I'm telling you. The subtext is there. I mean, most people are missing that. They're not picking up the massive crack epidemic in this city, but yeah, it's there.
He does, looking back on it, he does give a little preamble to Krem, which we don't really know much about Krem yet. But then when that comes up, we get a pretty good description of how that works. Yeah, he really, he described the world in so many ways where how it kind of works physically, which is cool. I mean, it gives us tangible things to actually be able to picture and envision that, and most of it's built on our world. I mean, it's still, very much we can picture these cities and things, but I like those little touches where the cultures are clearly very different in terms of skin color, eye color, but also the way they dress, their languages and all that other stuff. This chapter is real big on all that.
Yeah, this chapter is huge on world building, character development, and mainly those two things: the cultures, the city, the different cultures between, mixing, how the cities are built to withstand the storms. So I mean, you get a ton of world building aspects, and then you just get the character development of Shallan. You're getting introduced to her, kind of getting little pieces of information about her personality, why, her background, and it's not a plot heavy chapter. There's not much plot to it, other than we get a hint of the plot at the end.
It's pretty cool too. There's a number of points where we get that she has this leather-bound drawing pad that she fixes images in her mind.
Yeah.
Right? When she like blinks to remember it. Like, it seems like she's really almost like she has a
photographic memory.
Yeah. Photographic memory. Yeah. And then I didn't even realize it until we went back through it. It seems like the way the chapter starts, you have these images of the sky eels.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, so this is basically her drawings.
Yeah.
So you have the sky eels and then like little descriptions written in, which is cool. I mean, that's a cool little addition to the book because this really immerses you in the book even more. It's like we have access to her journal.
Yeah, except for like when you look at that drawing of the sky eels, it looks like a kind of just like an amateur drawing. And then like when you think about like the way they describe Shallan's drawings where everybody's just like fucking shitting their pants when they look at him, they're like, holy shit, it's amazing. Like, well, either the rest of the world is really fucking shitty at drawings, or that's not like Shallan at her best, or that's not Shallan in that little artwork in the book.
It could be when she draws human faces or something.
Well, like it's much what I think of like with Shallan, it's like, have you ever seen like those makeup videos where people do like just insane things with makeup, where they do these optical illusions? And
oh yeah. I mean, or you see that with like
things.
Sometimes you see that with chalk drawings on the ground where it looks like literally you're going to fall off a cliff.
Yeah,
it's just on the ground.
Yeah,
yeah, I hear you.
That's what I think of with Shallan, is just like insane ability to draw, not just like
I guess
I make okay sketches.
No, I guess I hear you. Yeah, it does seem like when somebody sees what she does, they do kind of get their nips blown off.
Yeah.
Well, she should just say that. I don't know why more authors don't just say that, because that makes it very clear to me what's happening.
It's the most common way to express that feeling. I mean, that is what all the kids are saying it. And authors are just missing opportunities to drop that line in there.
To really emphasize, really deliver what's going on.
Like, it's like no one watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. This is why they don't have an award, is because like these idiots aren't freaking watching it, and if they did, they would be talking about is nips being blasted off.
What award? What are we talking about?
Yeah. But yeah. So then she's like, how many people lived in a place like this? Thousands, tens of thousands. She shivered again, daunted yet excited, then blinked pointedly, fixing the image of the city in her memory. Captain Tosbeck was a calm and cautious man, an excellent sailor, even if he was a pagan. He guided the ship with care along the coast, always finding the sheltered cove to ride out ice storms. It's kind of interesting the fact that their sailing system is completely screwed because of these storms. These storms happen so often that they can't even like sail out into the middle of the ocean because they're just going to get sunk.
Yeah.
So what's curious about that is you wonder if they've discovered all the land on this world.
It seems like that, yeah.
If they can't fucking travel deep out into the sea because the storm, they're going to get drilled with a hurricane and get sunk.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be real curious if like it's just one plot of land, with like maybe some little islands or something like that, or is like there are whole continents that they haven't discovered.
It seems to me like there wouldn't be a whole lot of sailing, period. Right? Because if they could just go down the coast, then you'd be safer being on land.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it would seem like basically plains would be where you'd want to be.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
not plains. You want to be where you got shelter.
Yeah. Big mountains, caves. There'd probably be a lot of cave dwellings, things of that nature.
Yeah. You'd have to have walled off cities.
That's an interesting point.
But the storms always blow in one direction. So it's not quite a hurricane where, the wind's coming from every direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very unique type of hurricane. So yeah, it'd be very, very different society.
Well, and I guess, although it is also, they are predictable. They know when they're coming. To
an extent. So yeah, that's how they can sail. So they have a good guesstimate of when a storm's going to happen, so they can go park and chill in a cove and wait it out. They're still limited, all right?
Yeah, with how far they can go, because if there's that's an interesting point you bring up. So there could be that would feed the assumption that there could be lands out that you would have to go on a long trek that you're never going to know it's there, because you can't unless you are able to engineer some vessels that can last through the storm and have some real some ballsy dudes that are willing to try to navigate it.
Yeah, and then we learn Tosbeck, who's the captain of the ship, was a short man, even shorter than Shallan. Yeah. And so he's like you, little tiny short man, like probably 4'9" like you. And Tosbeck, he wore his long white Thaylens eyebrows up in a curious spiked pattern. It was like he had two waving fans above his eyes, a foot long each. Foot long waving hands for eyebrows. Just put your hands up to your eyebrows and wave them. And, unless you got little baby hands like Tim, that's basically a foot long fucking waving eyebrows. It's a ridiculous look.
Dude, no, it's bad. It's so hard. It's so badass, dude. This dude's walking around just looking super badass.
Oh, he's pulling. I mean, yeah, no doubt. He's he's peacocking the shit. I mean, he's peacocking. He's pulling so many ladies.
It's perhaps the weirdest form of peacocking I can picture. I mean, the stupidest, loudest, ridiculous hat. This is more ridiculous.
Now, what we need to do, we need to introduce old Tosbeck here to old Benny No Brows, fucking Abinthy from the King Killer Chronicles, because those two meet up. That's a fucking market right there. He's got eyebrows to spare. He could just cut off a little piece. Fucking old Benny No Brows. Suddenly he's got some fucking he's got an abundance of brows.
I think immediately both of their nips are blown just from seeing the guy's eyebrows. He's like, whoa, and then another guy, no eyebrows. What? Yeah, they're both just, what the fuck is going on here?
Oh man,
and what is this Thaylens place? What's with the eyebrows?
Yeah, why do their eyebrows grow like that?
What's their diet, man?
Nobody else's eyebrows grow like that.
There's something in particular they're eating. Or I don't know, man. That's it's such a funny. It's a really funny
you try to think of a corollary. Where does this happen? Like I can't think of anybody that has like eyebrows that grow or armpit hair or pubic
So
hair that like grows, just never stops
no,
growing.
I mean, the one thing that it kind of made me think of, there's a point guard, Elfrid Payton, that had the most ridiculous hairstyle that I was thinking if I was like a coach, I don't know how I would take him seriously. I don't know how I could like have a conversation with him and just not be like, dude, what's on your head? Like, what is this? What's this big thing, this tubular big dread I'm staring at? Like, it just looks so strange. The eyebrow thing, it'd be hard. It would be so distracting on like a television show. These guys, like, it'd be hard to take the guy seriously at all. He'd just have to be like comic relief, which actually, the way this character is, it would kind of work, right? Because he has a little back and forth with Shallan, and it's she fucks with him, which I like Shallan a lot. She's very, very likable, given like her personality and her background and how she's like always fucking with people. One thing I did notice about Sanderson with Shallan and somebody else later, he likes those literal jokes. You know what I mean? Like he likes to. He
smart
he
ass.
that shit.
He correlates wittiness to being a smart ass very much.
Yeah. Yeah, I noticed that with
Yeah, she is a huge, huge, huge. I'm not a particularly big fan of.
Yeah, I know.
Taking
I do this shit.
The words that people say and just making jokes, taking them in
on the word itself,
extreme literal interpretation of the word. Like, it's not my favorite, but it is Shallan's super favorite.
I like doing it, and yes, it annoys people, and that's kind of what I like about it. One of the things I like about it.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that you would be a bigger fan of Shallan than me. I don't dislike Shallan. I like Shallan's character, but I would find her less funny and less witty than the characters seem to find her.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit because of the situation, especially like the way she's playing. Like he's trying to give her a compliment, and she's like, it's kind of that's an annoying way to do it. Where she's like, "Oh, so you're saying I was attractive the days that we had good weather, but the bad weather days, apparently, I wasn't looking so good." It's like, yeah, take the fucking compliment, chick. Jesus.
Yeah, she's very insecure, but yeah, and she uses her sense of humor to hide her insecurities. But I like the character. I definitely like the character. I would not find her funny though.
No, but part of the reason why I bring it up in regards to Sanderson is like I don't remember the specific circumstance, but there was another circumstance that was the joke's made again. It's not Shallan. It's a completely different character. So I think that's Sanderson bleeding through. Although, I mean, he wrote all this shit, so what am I talking about? This is all him. But
yeah, and if you read other series that he writes, he's a big fan of sarcastic, smart-ass humor. A lot of his characters, a lot of the humorous characters, smart-ass, sarcastic, that's a big thing. You see it with Wit, but there's differences. Yeah. There's differences. I like Wit. I do think his stuff is more witty. I mean, because there's an art. There's an art to it, to being witty. Like there is, like, you can be a smart ass and be sarcastic and it can be witty, but a lot of times when you're a smart ass and a sarcastic, it's not super witty. It's just, it's kind of, it can be annoying.
The real challenge is doing it in a way where the person you're also like sort of making fun of also finds it funny. That's the real challenge. That's when you're extraordinarily clever. Wit is really just taking a piss at everybody, which is very fun for us to read. It's very fun for us to read.
Part of like things where I think someone's witty is like they'll say something and it almost takes like a second for my brain to register what they just said because it was so quick. Where it was like they make a joke and your brain does not process the joke as fast as they said it, and then you're like, oh yeah, well shit, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and as we all know, all jokes are better if they've been explained.
Yeah, that's the huge problem with. That's one of the downsides of being witty is like you're throwing out a joke and you're catching people off guard when it would have been funnier if you explain that you were going to do that beforehand. That's how you take wit to the next level.
Here it comes. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, that always makes it better.
Yeah. Yeah, Shallan would really amp up her comedic skills if she explained her jokes before she said them. But yeah, so
I like so one point I like all this. I mean, he does a really good job of explaining her situation, kind of what she's doing. The one part that I think is extraordinary, like really important to sort of set the stage for what happens. The plan made Shallan nervous, very, very nervous. She hated being duplicitous, but the financial state of her house, they either needed a spectacular infusion of wealth or some other edge in local Vaden house politics. Otherwise, they wouldn't last the year. So it just kind of, and then we get more pieces of what in particular happened, but it's basically the house is dependent on what she's trying to do here. And then we find out it was her idea, and she has a lot riding on this apprenticeship, so to speak, with Jasna Kholin, who's a fucking awesome character as well.
Yes, and I like, we get that this guy's taking her around because there's a business connection with her family, and then there is a plan, and it is duplicitous, that she is trying to do something with Jasna or to Jasna. Like obviously I know what, I think you're far enough where you know what she's trying to do, but yeah, so he wants to steal.
I think it might be in this chapter or the next. I mean, we get it pretty soon,
one, but
okay, all right.
But yeah, the Soulcaster, it's the next chapter with it's the next one, because when she sees her use it in the next one, then like it ends with she's got to fucking jank that shit from her. But yeah, so like, but the first time you're going through this, you're realizing like, okay, she's trying to do something fucking shady, getting like some Ocean 11 type of, that she's trying to screw her over in some respect. And then it's interesting because the way she builds Jasna up is Jasna is extremely fucking powerful, extremely smart, extremely well educated, extremely well respected, where it seems like this is not the type of person you want to fuck with.
I like the other spin, and she mentioned it about the captain who's a heretic, or not a heretic, a pagan. Seems to matter to her because she mentions it, right? And then she mentions how high and infamous and powerful and influential Jasna Kholin is, and then that she's also a professed heretic, which is a really interesting. No matter how you feel about it, whenever I read a book and you read about a character who's powerful and influential, yet is rebellious to society's norms in some way, it just makes them more interesting. Yeah, you know what I mean, no matter how you feel about religion itself, and I don't even know what the religion is yet, so whatever, I don't have a reason to believe in what they believe, but just the fact that she is a heretic makes me appreciate the character because she's a bit of a rebel. And one would think if she's as brilliant as they're describing, she probably has good reason, or at least she's applying reason to choose that path.
Yeah,
so it immediately draws me to the character.
Yeah, the dynamic is interesting, especially as it get a little more about Jasna. Like, I mean, it's interesting why and what her actual thought process is versus what the interpretation from outsiders is. Because like we're getting what people are interpreting. We're getting Shallan's interpretation of a person she's not met. So we just hear that she's a heretic, but we don't know why or what exactly she believes.
Yeah, that's how it works in our world too, right? It's easier. Everybody does that. We all do that by nature, as we label people if we don't understand them, and we also allow them to be labeled. And then that's what we think about these people if we don't look further. Is there's this label about that person? Oh, that they're like that, or they fit into this category in our minds. Hopefully, at least I think the goal is look past that and try to get to the reasons why they are the way they are. And as far as I'm concerned, she's awesome. Thus far. I mean, she could be a piece of shit as I read on. I don't know.
Yeah, my only problem with Jasna is why spell it with a J? Like, if you're going to make the J silent, because like it's hard for me not to say,
well, it's not
pronounce
silent,
the J.
Yeah.
Or like
It's
you
easier
get
to make it a Y as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. But it's just, if you're going to pronounce it with a Y, spell it with a Y. And I also don't like Yakaved because, again, why'd you spell it with a J? If it's going to be Yakaved, you should have spelled it differently. Yeah. So learn how to spell like you're an author.
That actually makes it kind of interesting.
You write for a living. Learn how to spell and learn how to spell things that are pronounced correctly.
I kind of like it. I like that it's spelled a certain way, yet you're still not going to say it that way because it doesn't work with the way that we speak.
No, the what would drive me nuts is like had I listened to the book before I read it. So the first time I went through, I just did the Audible. So I was pronouncing the words in my head the way they're said on the Audible, and then when I read it, I was like, I don't even know who this character. Hold on, that's the same person. Like that's Zeth. That's how they were spelling Zeth. And that's how they're spelling Yasna. Like what? Like none of the spellings looked anything like I had pictured them in my head.
That I can appreciate that.
Karbroth? I was like, that's Karbroth? Kharr?
How do you say Ashelv?
Say what?
I'm just looking at it. This may be only come up once, but the captain's wife was Ashelv, Ashlv.
Oh,
or is that Ashley 5?
Axel or something like that.
No, I think it's Ashley 5.
Yeah.
The V is for 5.
What is that? What was the Johnny 5? It's Johnny 5.
Just make it Johnny 5?
Yeah.
I like Johnny 5. We'll just make that Johnny. Yeah, short circuit.
But yeah, speaking of Yakaved and Karbroth, those are 2 of the 5 Vorin kingdoms. So kind of the how the world is situated is there's 5 Vorin kingdoms. There's other places, but as far as the Vorin is a religion. Vorinism is one of the primary religions of Roshar. And there's 5 Vorin kingdoms.
Roshar's the world, right?
What's that?
Roshar's the world.
Yes.
Okay. And
of the 5 kingdoms that are Vorins, you have Alethkar, which is like Dalinar, and Kaladin, and then Yakaved, which is where Shallan's from. Karbroth is where she's currently visiting. And then we got New Natin and Thaylens, which you have not experienced yet.
But Karbroth is a free city, right?
Yeah.
But it seems as if as far as I've read, it seems like largely it's monarchy rule throughout.
Yeah, they're all 5 kingdoms. Yeah, so there's kings in all of them.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and so when we meet Yakaved, when we meet Jasna Kholin, she's talking to a king. He just happens to be a king of a very small, like, city-state or something, or like a very small region as compared to where Shallan is from, I believe.
So, yeah, to their god, the Vorin's god is honor, and the 10 heralds are deity type figures of their religion.
Those are the people from the prologue, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So they worship like the 10 heralds, but the main deity figure is honor. So like,
and then their heralds are also shard. They carry shard blades. Is that correct?
They did.
Okay, but I mean
they left their shard blades when they
that's right.
abandoned their pack. Yeah,
but that's pretty important, right, to the theology of the world. I mean, if you remember,
and
deities,
he mentions
warriors,
that their shard blades are different.
Yeah. There's that. Yeah, but I mean, basically, the idea that your deities that you kind of rule, that you kind of worship to a degree, or you look up to, they were warriors. I mean, it's kind of saying a lot in terms about how you perceive the world, or you perceive interaction within the world. Probably why there's so much war, it seems. I don't know.
But so that's kind of like the establishment of, got that religion. who they worship, and the 10 heralds in honor, which you'll learn more about that stuff as you go along. But then you got the 5 kingdoms. There's also other places outside that, but these are the main kind of 5 that you're kind of getting introduced to in earlier. And so Yakaved, where she's from, and Carbranth and Alethkar, they all kind of got the same religion. They all are kingdoms, but they are separate.
One of the things that I thought was pretty interesting that got thrown in early here is they talk about parshmen, and they're not capitalized, just parshmen seem to treat them as if they're almost like animals. Right?
Yes.
I mean, it seems to like they don't think outside the box. They just follow orders, and they're basically treated. It's like a slave race, basically, or a race of slaves. And then you have the parshmen, and then it's almost like they're some people don't even believe it's necessarily true that there's these parshmen warriors. Now I'm drawing a blank at what they're
Parshendi.
called.
Yeah,
The
there's the parshmen who are the slaves who are very docile. They don't think. They can barely speak. They just follow orders. And then there's Parshendi, and they're like, so there's parshmen that fight and like have their cities and stuff. They can't even fathom because they think of them just like mindless zombies, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting wrinkle to throw in, to have that sort of mixture in that culture. Like, why would there be like this race of just like docile, mindless individuals, and then in the same culture basically have a sophisticated side as well? It's interesting.
Well, and it's also like they, the Parshendi, the ones that are they're fighting, that Dalinar and those group are fighting, like they got their own civilization and that kind of stuff, but they just met these people. They didn't know them. They didn't know that there was a different, they didn't know there was Parshendi. They just knew Parshmen. Mm-hmm. So they just knew these docile slaves, and then they meet the Parshendi. And so they're very different, but they look the same. They very, very close, bare minimum. They're basically, they're looking at them like these are the same race, or they're cousins. Like, that's why she's like, there's Parshmen that fight, but I guess they call them Parshendi, but they look the same. So like, what's the distinction? What's the difference? That's clearly a big mystery. What the fuck's going on there?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And so we also find out that she's been chasing Jasnah, Jasnah, been chasing her for 6 months, and every time she gets to a place, thinks she's catching up to her, Jasnah's already bolted. And we learn, Jasnah Kholin was one of the most powerful women in the world, and one of the most infamous. She was the only member of a faithful royal house who was a professed heretic. So they find out that she is in town. He's like, no message, sir. Doc Register says that Jasnah hasn't left yet. Ha, the captain said, turning to Shallan. The hunter's over. Bless the heralds, Shallan said softly. So, and there you get, again, bless the heralds. That's showing you that, that is part of their religion, is the heralds. So they are like deity type of figures to these people. Which is interesting because we see them as, human figures is what we see them as. They're mortal, but human. Mm-hmm. When we meet them in the prelude, they have, they're fucking tortured, tormented people who can't take the torment anymore. But in their mind, they're bless the heralds. They see them as deities, almost. They're praying to them and shit. So it's interesting, considering where we see them and what was going on in their heads at that time, thousands of years ago.
Yeah, it lends more complexity to the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then he's like, it must be your beautiful face that brought us the favorable wind. And then, you get that one, she doesn't want to say, she doesn't want to say what pops into her head because she's reserved. She's obviously had a upbringing where speaking out is frowned upon. And she doesn't think that she's supposed to, but these guys are like, yeah, dude, we're sailors. Just say whatever the fuck you want. And so she's kind of loosened up a little bit by just being with them. And she goes, well, Shallan said to the captain, blushing but still eager to speak, I was just thinking this. You say that my beauty coaxed the wind to deliver us to Carbranth with haste, but wouldn't that imply that on the other trips my lack of beauty was to blame for us arriving late? Well, or so in reality, Shallan said. You're telling me I'm beautiful precisely 1/6 of the time. Nonsense, young miss. You're like the morning sun, you are. Like a sunrise? By that you mean entirely too crimson? She pulled at her long red hair. Like, this is the part where, like, I get it. Like, I get why she doubts her looks. And she doesn't believe him. Like, I mean, you know, she's got that gross red hair. Like,
it sounds like
she's soulless ginger.
Oh my god!
Just like Kavoth, and it's gross. And I don't. What is up with all these fantasy books and giving these prominent roles to soulless gingers? Makes no sense.
I think she's a two-face. Is what it really comes down to. You know,
a two-face.
She's beautiful precisely 1/6 of the time. So I think what it really is, like there's Seinfeld, one of the Seinfeld episodes. She was in a certain booth with Jerry. Yeah. She's super attractive, very hot. And then he takes her out somewhere, and then she's in the wrong lighting, and she was very unattractive. It's all about bad lighting. So, yeah, maybe 1/6 of the time she's in good lighting, and then the rest of the time, not so much.
Yeah, she's got to have the right. What is their money? Their lamps. The gemstones, but the whatever you call them, the little fucking glowing gemstones, spheres.
Yeah, she needs the right types of spheres.
Yeah,
she needs to place them at the right place, either below her face or somewhere. You know, she needs someone walking around with those umbrellas that reflect light and then just like reflect it correctly.
Here's the part that would like I would have like gone past like, oh, it's cute, you know, little play on words the where she's like, well, be that true, I still say you're as pretty as a flower. If I am, then young men my age must be afflicted with the same allergy, for they keep their distance from me noticeably. She winced. Now see, I told you this wasn't polite. Young women should not act in such an irritable way. Ah, young miss, the captain said, tipping his knit-cap toward her. The lads and I will miss your clever tongue. I'm not sure what we'll do without you. Like, fucking annoying tongue. Like, all right, fucking give it up. Like, take a compliment.
You skipped it over there where he goes, you're like a flower. She goes, I'm allergic to flowers.
Yeah.
Like, all right, bro. I don't know what else to say.
I've tried to give you compliments, and you keep fucking throwing them back in my face like they're insults.
Yeah. Yeah, you seem real intent on just, this little pity party you have going on, or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
I think what it is about Shallan with her sense of humor, like, because I don't want to make it seem like I don't like Shallan, because I like her character, but I think what irritates me about her is that I picture her as the girl that would like tickle you, and you'd be like, no, seriously, stop, and then she would just keep tickling you. And to the point where you'd be like, I kind of want to punch you in the face because you won't stop fucking tickling me. I was like, I'm not going to do it because you're a girl, but like, seriously, I'm telling you, stop fucking doing this. It's annoying. Stop fucking tickling me. I don't find it funny. It's annoying. Like, this stupid game needs to end.
Okay, I guess I could see that.
Have you ever like been with a girl that does that just incessantly, will not stop? And it's like, dude, you like the fact that you find my annoyance funny is going to be a major problem, because I'm getting more and more annoyed, and you are finding my annoyance funny. But trust me, my annoyance is not funny to me.
No, it's funny you bring that up. I'm very good at getting out of situations where I'm physically being. If someone's like trying to tickle me or some shit, like having two older brothers, I will exit the situation very, very quickly. I will get the fuck out of there. I am not one to be. I don't like that shit.
No.
But yeah, I can see where you're coming from, and it's a. Well, that's the funny thing. It's the person that really does take it personally and get pissed off. That's the person that it's the most fun to do it too. So yeah, you got a real conundrum there.
Yeah, I mean it's a major problem. Like you don't want to be in a situation where your annoyance is the humorous aspect for the other person, because they are going to keep pushing your buttons because they think it's funny, and you are going to keep getting your buttons pushed and getting more and more pissed off. So it's a very, very bad dynamic. So like that is where it's like, I'm trying to give you a fucking compliment. Would you shut the fuck up with your stupid fucking jokes? Just fucking take the compliment.
It's not very common, but I've had this happen a couple times with women. I'm done. Okay, fine.
I agree. You're ugly. Yeah. I was joking. Peace. You're very ugly. I don't like your face at all. It's weird. Hair's gross. Everything. Nope. Don't like it.
You just walk away. You stink. And by the way, you stink too. You stink. You smell like shit.
You stink. Hate your mom.
You're a big nerd.
Yeah.
I hate your mom.
Can't cook. Walk funny. Everybody laughs at you behind your back.
See you later, though. It was good to see you.
Yeah, but so the part I understand is she's obviously very, very insecure. She is hiding behind the jokes. It is not. Yeah. She's not trying to be funny. She's trying to deflect. So she's very much. It's a very common theme in this book. Is like most of these people are broken fucking people.
Well, they're very conflicted. I mean, we get that when we get like the situation of she's a little bit scared and intimidated by being out on her own because she hasn't really done this before. But then at the same time, it's pretty great. She's filled 3 sketchbooks with pictures of the creatures and people she'd seen. And while her worry over her house's finances were a perpetual cloud, it was balanced by the sheer delight of experience. So, and we got that earlier where what I was talking about, where, the fact that she's going to have to be duplicitous bothers her, but at the same time, she's out on a mission and she is out on her own experiencing. And, so that that complexity there is interesting. And like Kaladin, she's a rounded character. She's not flat. And that typically is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, she's got jokes. She's got jokes. She's very, very proud of her jokes. But yeah, and then we also get more on the propriety. Like she's like all born women, she kept her left hand, her safe hand, covered, exposing only her free hand. Common dark-eyed women would wear a glove, but a woman of her rank was expected to show more modesty than that. In her case, she kept her safe hand covered by oversized cuff of her left sleeve, which was buttoned closed. Fuck that. You're wearing like fucking, pajamas, like with fucking footies and shit, like for your hands. You can't use your fucking hands. Like, nope. Like, I need access to my fingers, y'all. Like, these fingers are useful. Like, I'm not fucking locking up my left hand and I can't use it.
Well, I think she can actually use it if I remember right, but yeah, it's covered.
Yeah, but it's fucking
very
like
impractical.
It's like wearing mittens.
Yeah, it's very, very impractical. It's a weird
for no reason.
Too. Yeah, it's a weird thing because they talk about later a young girl comes out and she was so young that she didn't have that her hand covered. Ooh, man, I bet that looked scandalous.
I was looking it up, like where did he come up with it? And so Sanderson said that the tradition derives in part from a famous book written by an artist who claimed that true feminine pursuits and arts were those that could be performed with one hand, while masculine arts were those performed with 2 hands. In a way, associating delicacy of women in brute force with men. He also compared it to traditional foot binding in China. Further, that it relates back to philosophical treatises written in world long ago, and this is in their world, where a woman was saying, these are feminine arts, these are masculine arts. It was partially a way to control access to shard blades. Even shard blades and shard plate first were allowed the common people because the Knight's rating and But he says, really, the reason is humans are weird.
I mean, I get it. I get where they're coming from with that. It's so impractical, though. I mean, it's It's a very impractical way to show, like, I'm sophisticated. I'm put together the right way. Like, are you gonna do this at
I'm
home?
more, yeah.
Like,
I'm a woman in this society, I'm gonna be like, well, you can think I'm a whore all you want, but I'm gonna be fucking
I was gonna
horning it up,
say,
showing that
like
fucking
with,
left hand, fucking rubbing it in your fucking face.
well, like Yasna Kholin, like, so she has the courage, let's say, to be a heretic, but still covers that left hand because she's
Yeah.
sophisticated. Like, I mean, fuck, man. Like, it's just so impractical. It's such an impractical thing to do. I mean, I would rather have the ridiculous
Lock up
eyebrows.
a hand? You're just locking up your mitten,
Yeah.
your fucking kitten mitten, your hands.
Kitten mitten. I mean, I'd rather have the eyebrows. If I had to choose,
Yeah.
I'd have ridiculous eyebrows,
Yeah.
like weaved into my fucking hair. Than lose a hand. My God, dude.
Man, voluntarily losing a hand, like it's such a weird society. Like the women read, the men don't. The women are into science and experiments. The men are into just fucking hacking shit up. They're fucking barbarians. And yeah, but then the women are, who are smart, intelligent, well read and everything. They're just like, yeah, no, it totally makes sense. We just fucking lock up this useful hand in fucking our kitten mittens, and that's what we fucking do.
Yeah, it's that's a hard one. That's a hard one to imagine living within. Yeah, optically, I guess we can just like, okay, well, that's the way their world is. It's extraordinarily impractical.
Yeah, and so Yulb takes her and gets her a cart, and the porter began to talk back to her. Yulb translated, hands in the pockets of his vest. He says that the city is special because of the lake here. Shallan nodded. Many cities were built in the lakes, areas protected from the high storms by nearby rock formations. So the way this city is built is kind of like a V-shaped, where the rocks, it's V shapes inward. So the city is built into the inner part of the V, which protects it from the storm. So these cities that they build are built with the storms in mind. So obviously the storms have a massive function on how they live their day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
it sounds
seasons are like, I mean, you don't even have consistent seasons and shit. They're just changing week to every couple of weeks and shit. Like, it's a very weird world. It's everything about this world is very different. The part that makes it what I like about it is so fucking different, but it is so easy to fall into and read.
Yeah,
he does a really good job of weaving weirdness and making it comfortable.
Yeah, I agree. I like the well, and even like the bells. Like, so it's like, and they kind of debate whether that's even necessary. You can feel the wind. You don't need bells to tell you the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
But that's why the whole town has bells. Even on the the rickshaw they're on, it has a bell. It's kind of a cool, I mean, it really builds out the city. And then also the idea that whatever the shop is, whether it's, food or something else that has a particular color that's like painted or was originally painted onto the building. So the buildings, there's all these different colors which signify what trade, the building is. So it's like this labeling effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, like you said, it's really different. But yeah, it draws you in.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. I read like there's another series, the Malazan series, and it's very good, but it's also very different, but much harder for me to sink into than this series is. Much harder. It takes me, like, I had to read the first book a couple times before I can, finally sink into it. It's very big credit to Sanderson that he can make a world this fucking different, and I could sink into it easily. But we also get some interesting pieces of information here and in this part of the book, because this is stuff where there's something there even if you don't know exactly what's going on. She's like, she gawked at those they passed. Those men with the gloved hands and faintly bluish skin were from Natin. But who were those tall, stately people dressed in robes of black? I have no clue who that is. Don't know. Couldn't find any information. If you're, as far as the audience is concerned, if you have guesses on that, send them my way. Like, I'd love to hear your theories on it, because I don't have a theory on who these people are dressed in robes of black. But then there was and the men with their. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the fact that they're exceptionally tall and all black, those choices, it does definitely make it stand out, where it's like, well, and then the second time I read it through too, I didn't remember necessarily faintly bluish skin, Natin. I mean, both of those, the name, the skin color, it's interesting. We don't. Well,
it's interesting. She knows those people. She has no clue who those these guys are. I don't know who they are. And the men with their beards bound in cords, making them rod-like. That one is somewhat easier to guess, like, because there's other books, Warbreaker, that you haven't read, where there is descriptions of like brown skinned traders from Tedradel. I can't remember how you pronounce it. Tedradel, with their long black beards bound with tight leather cords into cylindrical shapes. And that's on a planet Nalthis. So it could be that these are world hoppers that are people from a different world that she's seen, or there's another part of the world you're going to learn about later on that it could be people from that place as well. I'm not going to go into that because you're going to read about them, but we'll talk about it when they come up. But it's also interesting, like, could, those people be world hoppers as well? Like, are they all from this Warbreaker world? Is there more people from other worlds than we expect? But this is like your kind of first little piece that there's more. The Cosmere this might be a subtle hint at there's, people from other worlds that are in this world, like, that she doesn't recognize. And this is like your first little clue. We don't know exactly who the men, the tall dudes are, or the guy with the beard. It could be people from this planet, or it could be people from other planets that have got to this world. So it's an interesting dynamic that we learn more about as we go on, that we'll dive further into as we get further in the series. But it's just one of those things to point out that there's more going on. There's much more going on than the characters realize.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just the little mentioning, it's like 2 sentences or 2 or 3 sentences, but just in those sentences, you get the feeling as they roll through here, like, this is sort of a nexus where a lot of people come together. It's a free city, so that makes sense. But yeah, it seems like it builds the world out in a big way, because, I mean, the idea of just something that looks so different, and then also the fact that she doesn't recognize a couple cultures, says a lot as well. Yeah, because she's pretty learned. I mean, we find that out. She has some experience. She hasn't left her area much, but she's studied. So the fact that she has no idea who a couple of those groups are says something.
Yeah, I also like that the porter tried to screw her over because she doesn't speak his language, and then. Because it reminded me of living in Los Angeles, bartending on Hollywood and Highland, like, because that's tourist fucking central. Like, if you're not familiar with that as an audience, like, that's where, like, the handprints are. You got to walk, the stars, where all the stars are on the ground, but then you got the Chinese Grauman Theater where the handprints are. So it is tourist fucking central there, and so there's always cabs lined out. So I would get a cab home every day. But these cabs are picking up tourists all day long. Their meters are jacked the fuck up. Like, they're like, I take a cab ride home, it'd be $8 every fucking day. Then every now and again I get in a cab, and that meter would be like $25. And I'm only taking these cabs at like 3:00 in the morning. there's no one on the road. There's no difference in the ride whatsoever. So like some of these cab drivers were just robbing people. So I got to a point, like I was just getting in arguments, fights with cab drivers all the time, refusing to pay them, fucking $25 for an $8 ride. Give them $10 and they'd be screaming at me and be like, well, call the cops, man. Like, we'll get this situated here. You fucking robbing people, you dick. But I just started having to give them cash. But it every time I read that, that's what I think of. It's just like those cab drivers that are just sticking people because they're tourists.
It did the same thing to me when I first moved to LA, coming from the airport. And I'd tell them, like, look, man, I live here. I'm coming here. I'm not visiting. I'm coming home. So I know how much the ride home is. I had the same situation where I'm literally yelling at the guy and just throwing my cash and get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Where it's like, dude, you're fucking screwing people over, man.
You young kids, you don't even understand how much Uber and Lyft changed the game.
Dude, it's the
like,
best.
You used to just have to fucking fight with cabbies. Like you did, you go into a unfamiliar city. You don't know if this guy's like his meter is triple what it should be or not.
Suddenly broken English. Suddenly can't speak very good English. And just keep repeating the number, and pointing at the meter. Like, nah, man, I'm a human being. We both speak fucking English.
Yeah.
You fucking drive a cab, like in the United. Get the fuck out of here, dude. That was always very frustrating.
Yeah, cabs, man. Yellow cabs. That's a different world. You don't understand how much Uber and Lyft changed the game. Very much for the better.
Absolutely. It's night and day, man. It's not even close. And there's nothing to miss about cabs. There's nothing to miss about cabs, except unless you're in that industry, and you sell medallions. That's it. That's the only thing. And like, who's that? How many people sold medallions? It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Goddamn monopoly.
Man. Like, you can find whatever you want to complain about Uber and Lyft. It is not the same. Not what you had to deal with back in the day.
It's funny too, because every now and then I do hear people complain about the surge pricing. It's just like, oh man. Okay. Go ahead. Complain.
But so
whatever.
That's what I think of with that fucking porter and his just little shrug, like, I tried to rob you. What are you gonna do? Like, I'm a funny guy. Like, no, you're not. You prick.
I like it as well because it seems like he doesn't understand, or he's not reading that. So Yalb and Shallan, they don't really know each other, right? Yalb is like,
well, they've been on the ship together, so. They're not like buddy, but they've been traveling with each other.
Well, it seemed to me the cab driver, let's say, read her correctly. She has no fucking idea, man.
No.
And so he basically tells Yob, like, hey man, let's both line our pockets here. She doesn't know any better. So he went for it, and then he ends up looking like a scumbag at the end of it. But
Yob's actually a pretty fucking decent dude.
Yes.
He's
he
looking out for
as his opportunity, and with no hesitation. Which is pretty cool. Yeah, it makes you, like that guy.
Although I'd like to know how they were going to split the difference. Like, what are they going to meet back up? Or, like, does Yalb have to trust this dude? Or, like, what, is she not going to notice that he hands Yalb money? Like, why are you getting paid for this trip?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would like to know how this scam works. Where, like, what, I got to trust you? Like, that you're not going to fucking just skip out and I get nothing? Like, so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a weird scam, but he tried to run a scam on her. But we learned a little bit about the world as far as like the gemstones could absorb stormlight, and that they made the spheres glow. When she opened the money pouch, shards of ruby, emerald, diamond, and sapphire shone out on her face. She fished out 3 diamond chips, smallest denomination. Emeralds were the most valuable, for they could be used for soul casting to create food. So we get a little bit more on their money. Also, each one was composed of glass bead, a little larger than a person's thumbnail, with a much smaller gemstone set at the center. And so that we were talking about how unwieldy the money would be. It's less wieldy than I was picturing in my head. Like I must have rolled through that each time I read that line. But if it's that small, it's basically they're marbles. It's not that unwieldy, but it's still wouldn't be super convenient.
Yeah.
They're glass. You can't drop them. Like,
Yeah, I mean, but so visually, it's kind of pleasing, right? The idea of like she opens her bag and then there's all these lights on her face, and like the idea that they light up, and visually, it's a stimulating thing to be able to read, to have that sort of representation, because it happens a lot. It's funny, people in the real world like villainize money. Yet in so many stories you read, it comes up a lot.
yeah,
Right? It's pretty
yeah,
important.
it's kind of important.
Money's actually an important thing to be able to make a society function.
Yeah, well, if you want to know how difficult it would be without money, is if you're just exchanging services. Like, how does a surgeon buy bread? What is he? Does the surgeon got to go find someone who needs their gallbladder removed to buy bread? Like, I got to find a bread salesman that needs a gallbladder removed? Like, no, this is you eliminate society dies without money, without a medium of exchange. You have to have like a good that you could trade that is fungible, that you could trade for other goods.
If you consider that also, then the surgeon is basically looking around for people that are gullible enough to think that they need their gallbladder removed when they don't.
Yeah,
because people that get a cold are getting things
without
pulled
money.
Out of their
There
bodies.
is no surgery. There is no science. There is no history. There's no teaching. None of that. Hey, you could probably have some teaching. That's not that. You could trade, teaching knowledge, but like hard physical labor. Like I build houses, like, and I need a loaf of bread. Like, okay, like, well, I don't need a house. Like, go to the next bread salesman, and hopefully he needs a house.
It's kind of important.
Yeah, it doesn't work. The world doesn't work without money. I mean, sorry, I don't know if, like, if you're having to listen to this and you don't know what the purpose of money is, like, the world doesn't exist. Billions of people starve to death without money immediately within weeks.
Yeah, but when people are frustrated that they don't have enough, it's easy to vilify that thing.
Yeah,
it's much easier.
Well,
to do that.
I could come up with some problems. I'm not going to dive into economics, but yeah, you have to have money. You have to have a medium of exchange. There's definitely problems. Not the problem that money shouldn't exist, though. That's ridiculous. But going back to like what I do like about it is just basically the visual element of it is interesting. It's fun to visualize. I feel. And then also the fact that we start with Szeth and we see the utility and the utilization of it, and then we see it with lights and all that stuff. It seems like they're dependent on this also in the sense that they don't really have, or they don't utilize electricity the way that we do. They use these stones. Yeah.
Right. That's how they're lighting rooms. That's how they're lighting anything, is they're using these stones. And then also, isn't there a big stone in like the center of these choles? Like their heart is a stone.
Yeah, they have gemstones in their heart. Yeah, they're basically like inside their chest, near their heart or something. They have gemstones. That's where they're getting a lot of their gemstones. So, yeah, and then they're putting them in like these glass spheres. The bigger the gemstone, the more valuable it is. But also, different gemstones are more valuable than others. Yeah. Like you have like marks. And chips and bromes, like, so there's different denominations. Yeah, it's a very, very, very complex economic system.
One of the things that really kind of surprised me this time around, that maybe I just didn't realize it the first time, emeralds were the most valuable, for they could be used by soulcasters to create food. So the idea that you can actually create food with these things, it's fucking huge, man.
And not only that, like, you're consuming the metal, like you're consuming the emerald and stuff. You're using up this shit, and so that would also change the economics of the world.
Yeah,
because
that greatly increases the value.
The monetary unit is deflating,
consumed.
And so it's being consumed, and so it's like silver. I mean, silver is consumed, whereas gold isn't, and so I mean that's that's realistic.
Well, so that, and then that comes down to the supply. Are they mining all this stuff? Some of it's coming out of animals' hearts and shit.
But
So
yeah,
it's
that's
like,
the other
yeah,
thing. Like they're using
the supply.
a significant amount of the supply on this stuff, and they have to hunt it down. Like, yeah, it's a very fucking complex economic system. It's one of those things where it's good that he doesn't dive super deep into it because it's so complex. You could kind of fucking lose the system if you got too deep into it. But yeah, and then we also learned that another weird aspect of the world is she kept the most valuable spears she had in her safe pouch, of course, which was buttoned to the inside of her left sleeve. So she's got like a purse inside her fucking kitten mittens, or mitten kittens, and she's like they keep their money inside there. And they mention, like later on, they mention how like you don't fucking go into a woman's safe pouch. Like that's like looking at her fucking panty drawer or something.
Yeah, and that's why she keeps the most valuable coins there, or whatever you want to call these.
Yeah, there's just some weird aspects of this world that are just very, very different. It's interesting, but it's also
I mean, that makes sense. It would make sense. She's not going to spend the most expensive. She's going to spend the least expensive.
No, that I get. I'm just talking about she's got like a purse that she keeps in her fucking
in the sleeve
glove
whatever,
hand.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's also
I kind of
like
pictured
fucking
it. I guess
like super improper to look in it. But it's similar to a purse. Like you don't go through girls' purses.
Yeah, I guess I pictured it differently. I thought it was like strapped around her chest. Like people have those now. They're like fanny packs, but they wear them like around their chest.
Yeah, well, it's got to be pretty fucking big.
Yeah, to hold all the things, right?
Yeah, like I mean,
the orbs or whatever.
That's a weird fucking thing to have, like at the right at your hand. Like I mean, you're basically holding a purse, but you're holding a purse that is like sewn into your fucking onto your wrist. So it's a weird setup. It's a weird thing, the way their system works. Like you would think it would be like heavy and just like rip the fucking lining where your hand is, like pull the button open or something. It seems like it'd be causing fucking problems, but yeah, it's a weird system, but yeah.
I sew a pocket. Works. I sew a pocket on my underwear, and that's where I keep all my money.
Yeah,
that feels really practical for me.
Yeah. What?
Especially now, especially in this day and age.
I think like the equivalent for the men is like they should be like, instead of just having underwear and or doing like the tuck up under their their waistband to for their narbs. Like they should, like if the women have to like cover up their left hand, the men should have to like duct tape their fucking junk to their leg so that they are never improper, getting improper narbs like popping out and shit.
There's never a chance.
Yeah, I got that shit taped down.
It was literally like corded.
No way it's popping out.
Every day it has to be corded down.
Yeah.
So it's like basically tied down with two cords. So it's like literally layering it down instead of taping it.
It's the only way to make the system fair. Like the women have a shitty fucking hand system. Like you're taking out their hand, like the guys should at least have to, tape their fucking junk to their leg or something.
Junk. Yeah, it's a weird. It's a whole weird system. That's for sure.
And then we also learn something about their system, their caste system. So we hear about like, he would be of the second non, a dark-eyed citizen of very high rank, and born beliefs one calling, the tasks to which one dedicated one's life was of vital importance. Choosing a good profession and working hard at it was the best way to ensure a good placement in the afterlife. The specific devotee that one visited for worship often had to do with the nature of one's chosen calling. So, like, the different systems is like you have for the dark-eyed, you have nons, which the nons, it's a caste system, and the lower the ranking, the higher, the more prestigious it is. So, like, first and second nons are a higher prestige than 9th and 10th non. Who, like 10th nons, are slaves. And part of the system is like, the middle nons don't have the right of free travel, whereas the 1 and 2 nons have the right of free travel. They can, they have more freedom based on their, how high their ranking is. But most of the dark-eyeds are higher ranking, that they're 1 or 2 nons, so they have the right of free travel. But then 10th non is, all the way down to slave. And then you have the Dawn ranks, which are for the light eyes. So the way you think of it is non is like similar to the Nan system developed by Trick Daddy. And then the Don system is more like Don Draper and Don Rickles. Like that.
I was going to go with Master P because he was the last Don.
Oh.
Since you did the Trick Daddy thing.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I like non-bread. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's all I thought of.
You don't want non.
Talking about non. You don't want no nah. Okay.
But yeah, the Don system, like the first Don is the king, second is the high princes and that kind of stuff. Then generals, high lords after that. So it's the same thing. 1 is the highest, 10 is the lowest. So those are the two kind of caste systems. But they're each dark-eyed and light-eyes both have their own caste systems.
Yeah. Well, but when you talk about Vorin, so Vorin is like 5 kingdoms. There's kings for each kingdom. There's no ruler over all of Vorin. Or all of
Vorin's not a land. Vorin's
sorry, I meant to say Rosnar or whatever the hell it's called. Roshar.
Roshar, yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's a king of kings, unless I have it out there.
No. It's think of it more like Europe. There's multiple kingdoms in Europe.
Monarchies.
Yeah. But yeah, and so we get that she wants to be a scholar.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say I like that was an interesting choosing a good profession, working hard at it is the best way to ensure good placement in the afterlife. So it's not even just in your life itself; it's the afterlife. It's like devoting yourself to what ends up being your calling that you find is like the highest achievement. It's a pretty interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, and so like they got their professions, everything is built into their religion. Their religion is obviously significantly important to them. At least superficially it is, to the point where they're choosing professions based on it. But yeah, she wanted to be a scholar, so she's like, she longed to be a true scholar, to receive real instruction, to spend time on deep research and study. Was that part of why she suggested this daring plan of seeking out Yasna and becoming her ward? Perhaps. However, she needed to remain focused, because becoming Yasna's ward and therefore student was only one step. So we also get that she's, the one that initiated this. This was a daring plan that she suggested. Mm-hmm. And, talks about, one book she'd read claimed that Carbranth had been founded way back into the Shadow Days, years before the Last Desolation. That would make it old indeed, thousands of years old, created before the terrors of the hierarchy, long before even the recreants, back when Voidbringers with bodies of stone were said to have stalked the land. So those are things we're going to learn about. The hierarchy, the Voidbringers we'll learn about, and the recreants we'll all learn about. But those are, that's just him laying the groundwork for these things. Rothfuss does a similar thing a lot of times, where he mentions events or people, and then he just builds on them slowly but surely, where you learn what he's talking about. But it's something you see good writers do, is sprinkle that kind of shit in.
Well, so what's mentioned here is back into the Shadow Days, years before the Last Desolation, and the other things that you mentioned as well. So yeah, it's really laying out that path. And that was something I brought up from from even the prologue, I think, was Voidbringers and these questions of like the Last Desolation or the Desolations. You can tell this is building to that bigger story, and it seems like these are like epochs of sort. Perhaps, I don't know. Yeah. The Recreants, though, seems like that was probably a fun time. It was just a time of recreation. People just kicking back. A lot of lazy river, inflated tubes just floating around.
Tons of foosball. There's a
Okay.
lot of foosball in these books when you get into it, and that was their main recreation. Was they built entire
This
societies
town.
based on foosball,
So
drinking
this
games,
town.
foosball, crack. I mean, that's what this world is all about. They didn't have these
Wow.
stupid
Okay.
desolations. It should just be a party world.
So they just have these bummers come along, right? They just kind of
Yeah,
smash down everybody's fun.
yeah. I like to. They mentioned the feminine arts: music, painting, writing, logic, and science. Like okay.
So I
Those
don't get to
are
do any of that shit. Like that's like all the shit I like.
what do the men do? Like, oh, well, you guys like to break rocks and fucking kill each other. Like, okay. I think I'd rather do like the writing and logic and science, but
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds a lot more fun.
you
Sounds
can
a lot
keep the
more.
music and painting. I'm not interested in those, but the writing, logic, and science, yeah, I'd rather be a part of that than fucking smashing rocks and fucking cooking food or whatever else bullshit you want to fucking make me do. It's much like how a young man would train in the honor guard of a bright lord he respected. Fuck that.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
sounds
want to
awful.
fucking be a soldier. That sounds terrible.
That sounds like the squire of a soldier.
Especially
then
a
be a soldier.
soldier in this world. Like,
Yeah, it sounds awful.
got dudes with shard blades running around? Like, no. Like, well,
Yeah.
do I get a shard blade? Then no,
Go
I do
against
not want to be a
go
warrior.
ag- I was gonna say go against a guy in shard plate with
Yeah.
a shard blade. Like, all right, fuck this. What am I doing?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
stupid.
They're just
Where are the
slaughtering
books?
thousands of people by themselves. Like, no, I do not want to be this guy.
It does. It sounds a lot better to be an ardent, which
Yeah.
they don't get to. I know they
Yeah.
don't get to. They don't get to possess things.
Yeah.
But I'd rather be an ardent with. Again, I'll go back to the massive eyebrows. I'd rather be
Yeah.
an ardent with huge eyebrows with peacock feathers in them than have to do this. Than have to do what you just described. Sounds awful.
But yeah, and so it kind of ends with her, as she's about to meet Yasna, and she's just thinking about what she's got to do, how bad her position is with her family. We learned that their father was dead, and it was vital to remain a secret. She didn't like to think of that day. She had all but blocked it out from her mind and trained herself not to think of other things. That is a prominent theme with Shallan, is blocking things out. House Devar owed great amounts of money to a great number of people, and without her father to keep them all appeased, the creditors would soon begin making demands. There was nobody to turn to. Her family, mostly because of her father, was loathed even by its allies. When it became known that her father was dead and her family bankrupt, that would be the end of House Devar. They'd be consumed and subjugated to another house. They'd be worked to the bones as punishment. In fact, they even might face assassination by disgruntled creditors. Preventing that depended on Shallan, and the first step came with Yasna Kalen. Shallan took a deep breath, then strode around the corner.
I also like you went over this obviously just here, but I like that, as you mentioned, Shallan has her self-doubt, but even as far as would Jasna demand that Shallan renounce her faith? She doubted she could do such a thing. Yet she doubted it. Didn't mean that, she's like questioning how far she's going to push me and what will I be capable of? Pretty interesting. I mean, given it tells us kind of where she's at, but also what she's sort of facing and willing to do, or even still questioning in her own mind.
Yeah, it puts her in a position where obviously the consequences are very the stakes are very high.
Yeah,
very
and
high. But then she's also got
she's
principles, and she's got things like she's like, even with the stakes as high as they are, could I denounce my religion? I don't know.
Yeah, it's again, so far with Kaladin, with Shallan, and even with Jasna Kalen, some interesting characters for sure. And those eyebrows, man.
Yeah.
I'm digging the world. But yeah, I like the complexity, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say it's obvious, but I like the complexities contained within Shallan's quest, so to speak. And then obviously, she's kind of on the stage here, and we're kind of moving along with her. With Kaladin, we're jumping all over the place, which is interesting because we start in a certain area and we're like, oh, this guy, look at this guy. And then it's like, oh shit, what the hell happened to this dude?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're peeling apart.
Yeah, we
moving
get two
through
broken
it.
people. I mean, there's clearly like Shallan's got a lot of insecurities. She's got a lot of family problems. Kaladin has got a pretty sweet gig, but he's not very happy about it.
Pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, yeah,
Questioning suicide.
yeah,
Yet he has a little fairy. He's got a Tinkerbell following him around.
yeah.
Helping him out, fucking with him.
He's
Not
got
really
free
helping him out yet.
gruel. He's not doesn't pay for his own
Yeah.
food. Getting 3 square meals a day. Little cup
He got
of
some
gruel.
got some pretty cool tattoos. Yeah.
Gets rained on for showers every now and again. What more do you want?
Much.
Well, you're greedy. But
Was it in this? I don't know if it was in this one or the next one where it's in the next one. Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say they press him on like, you want revenge. And he's like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
fucking want revenge. And then it's like, yeah, I do. Which is, so we did at least talk about that in a sense here, where it's like Kaladin says one thing and a paragraph later it's the other.
Yeah.
Like he's fucking dueling with himself.
yeah.
Fucking
Yeah,
really
he's
interesting.
he's 100% in his head. He's like warring with his own instincts constantly. He's a really interesting character. I like him a lot. I like both these characters a lot. Shallan annoys me sometimes, but it's not like it's not one of those things where it annoys me because I don't like the character or I think it's bad writing. She annoys me, and just her personality is not a personality that I like. But I like books where that there's different personalities, and some of them I don't like. Is like that's realistic. I don't want to read a story where like all the characters I like, that none of them have any personality quirks that annoy me, because that's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
If a book is like that, it's too one note.
Yeah, true. Well, and it's the insecurities, especially with her, which are interesting because, I mean, you don't want to. Everybody has their own insecurities, but obviously you want to pretend you don't.
Yeah.
And you don't want to portray those or have those be known. I mean, that's what an insecurity is all about. You don't want other people to know you have them. She plays on those consistently.
And you could see where like Shallan, like I could completely see where like some people would hate Shallan, some people would love her. She would be their favorite character, or their least favorite character, or like someone more in my shoes where I like a lot of aspects of her, and then there's other parts that annoy me, that she annoys me. Like, so it's because she's got a distinct personality, and a consistently distinct personality, where it makes sense who she is. She doesn't change a lot. And so that kind of writing I like. I like that I like when I'm judging the character for who they are as a character versus how they're written. Where I'm not like, I just don't like how that was written. It doesn't make sense. The character doesn't make sense. They're inconsistent. Like, I don't like that.
Well, it's in particular what comes up here pretty soon. She meets Jasna. Jasna gets shut down, but she powers through it.
Yeah.
But she also is like, why would someone lose their temper? And then she lose their fucking temper.
Yeah.
Like, why would someone act that way? And then she does it. So it's like, they make mistakes. And we were just talking about that with Kaladin, which is so interesting, is he's literally saying one thing and then acting the other way. And so that he knows it's inconsistent, which ups the frustration to another level.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because if you're in their head, you're seeing those inconsistencies. They're seeing it as well, which makes it that much worse that they're acting in that way, because that's how we are. If it's your fault, then it makes it that much worse, especially if you knew better.
Yeah, it's good writing, good character development. I like it. I'm a fan of the book. I think I'll keep reading on.
Oh, good. Because I was going to keep reading on as well.
Yeah.
So then, we can both do it then. That's cool.
And if you guys want to listen, you can, because we will keep doing it. We keep putting them out there.
What's the? I know we kind of talked a little bit about what's coming up, but
we'll get the second half of the trip. The fun time trip that Kaladin's on. a little road trip where going to the Shattered Plains, big amusement park atmosphere type of thing, like taking the kids to Disneyland. But yeah, so we get that, and then I don't remember what's coming up after that. I forgot to look ahead.
With Shallan, she
and Shallan's gonna
goes back and forth with Jasna.
Yeah,
and then she kind of quizzes her back and forth, and then we see more about the storm.
We might get the furthest we would get is with Kaladin gets brought into the Shattered Plains, and then shortly after that, I think once he gets introduced to the Shattered Plains is Bridge 4. So might get to that. I'm not sure.
Right on. And I was going to say, I believe with Jasna Kholin, we get a little bit further in terms of not just what people know about her, what she's actually capable of. And she gets to actually use some of her power, so we get to actually witness it.
Yeah, we see some of the magic. Yeah.
Yeah. What's it called again? Stormbringer?
Soulcaster.
Soulcaster. That's it. Yeah, it reminds me of sort of that early on with Zeth, which was fucking awesome. We got to read that. But yeah, it's good stuff. And then more, hopefully, probably more Flip Cup and Crack, and because that's all in the subtext. So I'm sure that'll come up a lot more.
Next time before you listen, even if you're at work, fucking play a little Flip Cup with Crack and down it.
Crack.
It'll help your work production, and you'll fucking fly through the episode. It'll feel like fucking went by in no time. But
in the meantime, I am going to I'm going to work these eyebrows. I'm going to see if I can get some slick.
I'm going to start taping foam fingers on
upward
my eyebrows. Yeah, I'm just going to see how it goes. See if I can make that a trend.
I think it's worthwhile. You should.
Well, all right. We will see you guys fucking next week. Peace out.
Yep.